Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Part 1. The Old Buccaneer, the Sea Cook, and the Hispaniola. How are you feeling, my boy?
I'm fine, Father. Never better.
So I can hear. Why did you do it? You know you can't swim.
We were playing pirates. I was the captain. I had to walk the plank, or the other pirates would have called me a coward.
You can't have been a very good captain if you had to walk your own plank.
My crew mutinied. I wanted to give the treasure to the poor. They wanted to divide it up amongst themselves.
They sound more like the pirates I know.
You don't know any pirates.
Not now, perhaps, but I did once. It was many years ago, before you and your sister were born. Before I'd met your mother, even.
You're making it up.
Well, if that's what you think, I'll bid you good night.
No, wait. I'm sorry. Tell me, please.
Only if you're sure. These are real pirates, James, not pretend ones. They lie, they cheat, they murder. I wouldn't want you to have nightmares.
Father, I'm not a little boy anymore.
No, you're not. Very well. Only not a word to your mother. Promise?
I promise.
It was towards the close of the last century, when your grandfather kept the Admiral Benbow Inn at the head of a lonely windswept cove in the West Country. I must have been about your age at the time. A little smaller than you, perhaps, but just as fond of trouble. I helped out in the kitchens and behind the public bar. Our customers were local fishermen and farmers, a quiet sort. The inn had no stables, so we seldom got visitors. Dr. Livesey, our local medical man, would sometimes stop by to see my father, who suffered from a nervous ague, or to talk to old Taylor, the gardener, about a new cure for rheumatics or some such ailment. That was the sum of our excitements. Until, that is, the arrival of the old brown sailor with the saber cut.
15 men on a dead man's chest, you and a bottle of rum. They said at the Royal George as how this was a pleasant citiated grog shop. The situation is indeed most comely, but I don't see no grog as yet. Rum!
Of course, sir. If you'd care to take a seat next to the fire, I'll bring it over to you.
Much obliged. As you were, gentlemen, as you were.
Who's that boy?
That's me, of course. If I knew then what I know now, I'd have told the old sea dog we were out of rum and sent him on his way.
Here we are, sir. Admiral Benbow's finest. My father ages the rum himself.
This is a handy cove, mate. Much company?
No, very little company. This is about as full as we get.
Well, then, this is the berth for me. There. You can tell me when I've worked through them sovereigns.
Thank you, sir. I'll take your sea chest up to your room.
All in good time, matey. Now, I'm a plain man. Rum, bacon, eggs is what I want, and that cliff top up there to watch ships off. What's your name, boy?
Hawkins, sir. Jim Hawkins.
Well, Master Hawkins, you might call me Captain. Just that. Captain. Nothing more. Tell me, Jim, how'd you like to earn yourself a silver fourpenny on the first of every month?
I should like that a great deal, sir, Captain.
Yes, I expect you should. Come closer, Jim, matey. I've seen dreadful things in my time upon this earth. Hanging, walking the plank, storms at sea, the dry Tortugas, wild deeds on the Spanish Main. I've lived my life among some of the wickedest men that God ever allowed upon the sea. And it's for the worst of them, as I want you to keep your weather eye open.
For the worst?
Aye. The wickedest man on the seven seas. Him has put more men in Davy Jones's locker than all the tempests that ever blew, or all the whales that ever swallowed a poor sailor. You mun keep watch, Master Hawkins, for a seafaring man. with one leg.
A seafaring man with one leg. How that personage haunted my dreams. During the weeks that followed, scarcely a night passed without my imagination turning to that grotesque, terrifying, lolloping gargoyle. On stormy nights, when the wind shook the four corners of the house and the surf roared along the cove and up the cliffs, I would see him in 1,000 forms and with 1,000 diabolical expressions.
It's deep on a dead man's chest. Yo-ho-ho, and the bottle of luck.
Now the leg would be cut off at the knee, now at the hip. Now he was a monstrous kind of creature who had never had but the one leg, and that in the middle of his body. To see him leap and run and pursue me over hedge and ditch was the worst of nightmares.
Think what the devil had done for the rest. Yo-ho-ho, and the bottle of luck.
But the seafaring man with one leg was not the sole reason for my troubled sleep. My father's health steadily worsened, until before summer was out, he had gone to a better place. And so I became the landlord of the Admiral Benbow. Things went on much as they had before, except for our illustrious guest. The captain's gold sovereigns had long since been exhausted, and yet he made no sign of wishing to leave. Weeks went by, and then months, and still neither my mother nor I plucked up the courage to ask for more money. All the time he lived with us, the captain made no change whatever in his dress, but to buy some stockings from a hawker. He never wrote or received a letter, and he never spoke with any but the neighbours, and with these only when drunk on rum. The great sea chest none of us had ever seen open. Only once was he crossed, and that was by Dr. Livesey.
15 men on a dead man's chest.
Yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum.
Drink and the devil had done for the rest.
Yo-ho-ho, and a bottle
You
of
there, Shawbone.
Are you addressing me?
Why ain't you a joining in? Demi, but I can't abide a surplus.
And I can't abide a sot. If you keep on drinking rum at the present rate, sir, the world will soon be quit of a very dirty scoundrel.
Say that again, Sawbones.
If you do not put that knife this instant in your pocket, I promise, upon my honour, you shall hang at the next assizes.
Just a bit of fun, your doctorship. I meant nothing by it.
I'm not a doctor only. I'm a magistrate. And if I catch a breath of complaint against you, if it's only for a piece of incivility like tonight's, I'll take effectual means to have you hunted down and routed out. Jim, make this man some coffee. And be sure he drinks the lot, even the grits.
Yes, Dr. Livesey.
He'll thank you in the end. Sober men live longer.
It was not very long after this that there occurred the first of the mysterious events that rid us at last of the captain, though not, as you will see, of his affairs. It was one January morning, very early, a pinching, frosty morning. The cove all grey with hoarfrost, the sun still low and only touching the hilltops. The captain had risen earlier than usual and set out down the beach, his cutlass swinging under the broad skirts of the old blue coat, his brass telescope under his arm, his breath hanging like smoke in his wake as he strode off. Mother was upstairs, and I was laying the breakfast table against the captain's return when the front door opened.
Chilly morning, sir. Can I fetch you some porridge?
I'll take a drop of rum, if I may. That'll sooner warm me belly than a mess of porridge.
Here you are, sir.
Tell me, sonny, is this here a table for my mate, Bill?
I don't know any Bill, sir. This is the captain's table. He's a gentleman who lodges with us.
Oh, well, my mate Bill'll be called a captain as like as not. He has a cut on one cheek, and a mighty pleasant way with him, particularly in drink, as my mate Bill. We'll put it for argument like that your captain has a cut on one cheek, and we'll put it, if you like, that cheek's the right one. Why, sure enough, here is me mate Bill, bless his old heart. What say you and me get behind this here door and give Bill a little surprise?
I'm not sure he'd take kindly to
Nonsense,
be...
sonny, this'll be as good as drink to my mate Bill, come on. Oh, well, now, look at my hand. You wouldn't want to lose your 2 fingers like as I did for answering back a man as didn't care to be disagreed with now, would ya?
No, sir. Sorry, sir.
Shh. Easy up. We'll give old Bill the cheers, you mark my words.
Jim! Jim, where's them bacon and eggs?
Bill.
Black dog.
And who else? Black dog as ever was, come for to see his old shipmate Billy at the Admiral Benbow Inn. Oh, Bill. Bill, we've seen a sight of times, us two, since I lost these 2 talons.
Enough of that. You've run me down. Here I am, and here's my cutlass. Well then, speak up. What is it?
I've come for to see if you've had a change of heart.
You know I haven't. And you can let 'em know that if it comes to swinging, swing all, say I.
Now, Bill. Be reasonable. We know where you are now. All I've got to do is say the word, and they'll send you a little you-know-what.
You'll have to get out of here alive first.
You'll pay for that cut, you cur! Death's coming for you, Billy Bones. I'm coming fast!
Captain, are you hurt?
I must run away from here. Must run. Must run.
Jim, what's happened?
It's the captain, sir. He was wounded. There was a fight.
Yes, I saw the other fellow hurrying over the fields. He looks to have got the worst of the bargain. Turn him over, Jim. And let's see how bad it is.
Was there an awful lot of blood, Father?
Not a drop. It turned out he'd not been stabbed after all. He'd had a stroke brought on by drinking too much rum, just as Dr. Livesey had predicted. We took the captain upstairs and laid him on the bed. The doctor bled him to release the tension around his heart, and it was several hours before the captain could speak again.
Who's there?
It's only me, Captain. I've brought you a cooling drink and some medicine.
Ah, Jim. You're the only one here that's worth anything. And you know I've always been good to you. Now you see, mate, I'm pretty low, deserted by all. You'll bring me 1 noggin of rum now, won't you, matey?
Dr. Livesey says the name of rum for you is death. It'll lead to another stroke, he says, and that'll settle you.
Ah, doctors is all swabs. Did he say how long I was to lie here in this old berth?
A week at least.
Thunder, a week? I can't do that. They'd have the black spot on me by then. The lubbers is going about to get the wind of me this blessed moment. But I'll trick 'em, I'm not afraid of them. Oh, that doctor's done me. My ears are singing. Lay me back.
Dr. Livesey will be back in the morning. You'll be safe until then.
Jim, you saw that seafaring man today?
Black dog?
Aye, black dog. He's a bad un, but them as sent him's worst. It's my old sea chest they're after, you see. Now, if I can't get away nohow, and they tip me the black spot, you get on a horse. You can ride, can't you?
Of course, but the nearest stables are
Well,
over
you
at-
get on a horse and go to that eternal Dr. Swab and tell him to pipe all hands, his magistrate friends and sick. Bring 'em up to the Admiral Benbow and he'll catch himself a fair prize, he will. All old Flint's crew, man and boy, all of them that's left.
Flint? Who's he?
Captain Flint, terror of the seas. I was his first mate, I was, and I'm the only one as knows where it's hid. He gave it me at Savannah when he lay a-dying.
Gave you what?
But you won't peach unless they get the black spot on me, will you, Jim? Or unless you see that black dog again, or a seafaring man with one leg. Him above all.
But what is the black spot?
A summons, mate. You keep your weather eye open.
Rest easy, Captain. I'll send them away and be back in a trice.
Oh, summons.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we're... closed. Hello? Is anyone there?
Will any kind friend inform a poor blind man who has lost the precious sight of his eyes in the gracious defence of his native country, England? And God bless King George, where or in what part of this country he may now be.
You are at the Admiral Benbow, friend. Black Hill Cove.
I hear a voice, a young voice. Will you give me your hand, my kind young friend, and lead me in?
I'm afraid the inn's closed, but I can lead you to the charity house. Here, take my arm and
That's
I'll...
it.
Ah!
Oh, boy. Take me to the captain.
The captain? I'm afraid he left an hour ago.
Don't lie, boy. Take me in straight, or I'll break your arm. Come now, march!
Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north of the... Jim!
Here's a friend for you, Bill.
I ain't got no friends. Hand me my cutlass, lad.
Now, Bill, stay where you are. If I can't see, I can hear a finger stirring.
So, it's you they sent, is it? Blind Pew, Judas of the seas.
Business is business. Boy, take his left hand by the wrist and bring it near to my right.
Do it, Jim.
And now that's done. Out of my way!
That piece of paper, is that...
The black spot. Aye. Open it, boy. Come on, it won't harm you.
It's just a black circle.
Aye, aye. What were you expecting? Magic? What's written on the other side?
You have till 10 tonight.
6 hours. We'll do them yet. Jim! Jim!
Captain, are you all right? Was he...
Struck dead by thundering apoplexy. Curiously, although I'd never liked the man, as soon as I saw that he was dead, I burst into a flood of tears. It was the second death I had known, and the sorrow of the first was still fresh in my heart. At the sound of the captain's fall, my mother burst in upon the scene, and I lost no time in telling her all that I knew. We saw ourselves at once in a difficult and dangerous position. Some of the man's money, if he had any, was certainly due to us. It had been months since Billy Bones had paid us any rent for board and lodging, but it was not likely our captain's shipmates, above all the 2 specimens seen by me, Black Dog and Blind Pew, would be inclined to give up their booty in payment of the dead man's debts. It occurred to us at last to go forth and seek help in the neighbouring hamlet. The hamlet lay not many 100 yards away, on the other side of the next cove. But in that cold and lonely twilight, it felt as if we were trudging a dozen leagues through the valley of the shadow of death. A mist was gathering, and with it came thoughts of that detestable blind beggar and his murderous companions hovering near at hand. When we reached the hamlet, not a soul would consent to return with us to the Admiral Benbow. The name of Captain Flint, though it was strange to me, carried a great weight of terror to many there. Moreover, some of the men who had been to field work on the far side of the Admiral Benbow remembered having seen several strangers on the road that very morning. and one at least had seen a little lugger anchored in what we called Kit's Hole. The wheelwright sent his lad off to Dr. Livesey in search of armed assistance, and the rest begged us to stay with them until the danger was past. The inn was sure to fall tonight, and none could prevent it.
So, did you stay?
We didn't. Mother was determined not to abandon the building to its fate, and so we returned to gather what possessions we could and to extract rent from a dead man.
Close the shutters, Mother. I'll slip the bolt.
A full moon was beginning to rise and peered redly through the upper edges of the fog. It was plain that pretty soon all would be bright as day, and our activities at the inn exposed to the eyes of any watchers.
9 o'clock. There's no time to lose. Upstairs, quickly.
We went up to the dead man's room and searched his pockets, to little avail. A few rusty coins and a plug of tobacco. At last, I undid his greasy shirt, and there, depending from a length of tarry string round the old sea dog's neck, was a key. I cut it free with my gully and held it with trembling hands. It was the key to the mysterious sea chest. A strong smell of tobacco and tar rose from the interior, but nothing was to be seen on the top except a suit of very good clothes, carefully brushed, folded, and clearly unworn. Under that, the miscellany began. A quadrant, a tin cannikin, several sticks of tobacco, 2 brace of very handsome pistols, a piece of bar silver, an old Spanish watch, and some other trinkets of little value and mostly of foreign make, a pair of compasses mounted with brass, and 5 or 6 curious West Indian shells.
That can't be all. Why would he bother to lock this up?
And then we found it, hidden under an old boat cloak whitened with sea salt, a canvas bag that gave forth, at a touch, the jingle of gold. There were coins of all countries and sizes, and my mother began sifting through them looking for sovereigns. She would take no more than she was due in rent, she said, and certainly no less. Meanwhile, I extracted the final item from that battered old sea chest. A roll of parchment, tied up in oilcloth.
Mother, what do you reckon this is? Blind Pew! Grab what you can, Mother, and let's get out of... Mother? Mother!
The terror of that sightless fiend had proved too much for my dear sweet mother. She had fainted with fear. I knew that Blind Pew would even now be alerting his fellow shipmates to the possibility of foul play betokened by the locked-in door. They would be here well before the 10 o'clock deadline, and I didn't dare to imagine their mood upon discovering our ransacking of the captain's sea chest. We had to leave on the instant. I gathered up 2 handfuls of coins, stuffed the oilcloth packet inside my shirt, put my arms underneath my mother's lifeless shoulders, and headed downstairs. I don't know how I found the strength to do it, and I'm afraid it was roughly done. But I managed to drag her across the street, down the bank, and under the arch of the little wooden bridge opposite. Scarce had I done this ere my enemies began to arrive, running hard.
Down with the door! In!
At the head of them was that detestable Blind Pew, afire with rage. And first into the house was Black Dog, his shirt stained dark with blood from his morning encounter with the late captain.
Bill's dead. Looks like he's been overhauled already. And someone's turned the chest out too.
Is it there?
The money's there, but no sign of Flint's fist.
It's that boy. I wish I'd put his eyes out. He was here no time ago. Had the door bolted when I tried it. Scatter, lads, and find him. Rout the house out.
Mother! Wake up, Mother! We have to go!
That's Dirk. Two blast means trouble's coming. Must be the revenue men. We'll have to budge, mates.
What, you skunk? The boy can't be far. Now scatter and look for him, dogs. For my soul, if I had eyes.
Agate Pew, we've got the doubloons. They might have hid the blessed thing. Unless you wants to explain what we're doing here to the revenue officers, I'll quit your squalling and head back to the ship. Come on, men.
You have your hands on thousands, you fool, and you hang a leg. Oh, you'd all be as rich as kings if you could find it. That boy is close at hand, I know it. The bridge, of course. Come back, you laggards! The boy's under the bridge, I know it! He's here! The boy!
Down went Pew, never to rise again. Such was the wicked creature's delight in discovering our hideout that he ran right under the nearest of the coming horses. The rider, Supervisor Dance of the revenue men, tried to check his galloping steed, but in vain.
How about the other pirates?
The supervisor and his men pursued them to the beach, but they were too late to catch them. The little lugger was already underway, Black Dog and the others firing lead and insults back at the shore.
And Grandmother?
She revived with the return of the revenue men, and together we examined the wreckage of the Admiral Benbow. You cannot imagine a house in such a state of smash. Though nothing had been taken away except the captain's money bag and some silver from the till, I could see at once that we were ruined. Mr. Dance offered to escort us to Dr. Livesey. It was to the good doctor that we owed our salvation, apparently. Upon learning of our predicament from the fleet-footed wheelwright's lad, Dr. Livesey had at once hastened to Squire Trelawney up at the hall, who dispatched a messenger to the revenue men. Both the squire and the doctor were now awaiting news of our safety. Exhausted and cold, Mother and I submitted to Dance's entreaty and allowed ourselves to be ridden to the hall, to the doctor, and to the squire.
You, Master Hawkins, are a trump. And as for the noble Mr. Dance riding down that atrocious miscreant, I consider that an act of virtue, like stamping on a cockroach.
My mother having retired for the night, and Supervisor Dance having taken his leave, I had told the story of the evening's adventures to Squire Trelawney and to Dr. Livesey.
You have heard of this Flint, I suppose?
Heard of him? He was the bloodthirstiest buccaneer that sailed. Blackbeard was a child to Flint. The Spaniards were so prodigiously afraid of him that I was sometimes proud he was an Englishman. I've seen his topsails with these eyes, off Trinidad, and the cowardly son of a rumpuncheon that I sailed with put back, sir, into port of Spain.
The point is, had he any money?
Money? For what would these villains risk their rascal carcasses but money? They say Flint was the richest brigand on the sea. Took it all with him to Davy Jones's locker, of course.
I'm not so sure. Jim, I think the time has come to open Flint's fist.
Flint's what, sir?
That oilskin package you extracted from the late Captain Bones's sea chest. May I? Thank you. I'll borrow your pipe knife, if I may, Squire. Now.
The bundle was sewn together, and the doctor cut through the stitching with a surgeon's precision and delicacy. Then, with great care, he extracted and unrolled the parchment within.
A map!
By Gemini.
Not just any map, Jim. A treasure map.
It was an island, with latitude and longitude, soundings, names of hills and bays and inlets, and every particular that would be needed to bring a ship to a safe anchorage upon its shores. It was about 9 miles long and 5 across, shaped, you might say, like a fat dragon standing up, and had 2 fine landlocked harbours, and a hill in the centre part, marked the Spyglass. There were also 3 crosses of red ink, 2 on the north part of the island, 1 in the southwest, And beside this last, in the same red ink, these words.
Bulk of treasure here. So that's what Captain Bones was guarding. Flint's treasure map.
There's more on the other side. Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north of nor-northeast. Skeleton Island, east-southeast and by east. 10 feet. The bar silver is in the north cache. You can find it by the trend of the east hummock, 10 fathoms south of the black crag with the face on it. The arms are easy found in the sandhill, north point of North Inlet Cape, bearing east and a quarter north. J. Flint.
What do we do? Tell the revenue men?
Revenue men? Poppycock, we'll go after it ourselves. Livesey, you will give up this wretched practice at once. Tomorrow, I start for Bristol. In 3 weeks' time, 3 weeks? 2 weeks, 10 days, we'll have the best ship, sir, and the choicest crew in England. Hawkins, you'll come along as cabin boy.
But I couldn't possibly...
No, don't worry about the Admiral Benbow. I'll see to it that it's made shipshape again, at my own expense, mind. And I'll even send one of my stable lads to assist your mother behind the bar. You, Livesey, are ship's doctor. I am Admiral, and we'll take my gamekeeper, Redruth, he's a dull fellow but a fine shot, and Joyce and Hunter. We'll have favourable winds, a quick passage, and not the least difficulty in finding the treasure. And then we'll have money to eat, to roll in, to play duck and drink with forever after.
Trelawney, I'll go with you.
And so will I.
And be a credit to the undertaking, Jim, I've no doubt. But there's one man I'm afraid of. A man who could ruin the entire venture.
And who's that? Name the dog, sir.
You, for you cannot hold your tongue. We are not the only men who know of this map. These fellows who attacked the inn tonight, bold, desperate blades for sure, and the rest who stayed aboard the lugger, and more, I dare say, not far off, are one and all, through thick and thin, bound that they'll get that money. They'll be keeping their eyes peeled for the slightest mention of a treasure map. So not one of us must breathe a word of what we've found.
Livesey, I'll be as silent as the grave.
I hope so. Now, I must go to London for a physician to take charge of my practice. You can ride to Bristol, and Jim can stay here at the Hall with Redruth until such time as you send for him. We shall all three meet again at Bristol in 10 days' time.
Master Hawkins, wake up! Master Hawkins!
Where are we?
Welcome to Bristol, my boy.
Squire Trelawney!
Come on, out you hop. Redruth, fetch Master Hawkins' appurtenances and carry them into my lodgings at the inn. It's the white building over there, top floor.
Top floor, sir.
You'll find Hunter and Joyce already there. This way, Jim. Let's take a stroll to the docks.
Have you found a ship, sir?
Found, bought, and fitted. You never imagined a sweeter schooner. A child might sail her. 200 tons. Name Hispaniola. I got her through my old friend Blandley. The admirable fellow literally slaved in my interest. And so, I may say, did everyone in Bristol, as soon as they got wind of the port we sailed for. Treasure, I mean.
I'm not sure Dr. Livesey would like that, sir. We weren't supposed to mention the purpose of our journey.
Caution is for cowards, Jim. Fortune favours the brave. Why, the other day I was standing on this very dock, pondering how to crew the vessel, the ports are full of the French these days, when, by the merest accident, I fell in talk with the very man who could resolve my quandary. He was an old sailor, kept a public house, knew all the seafaring men in Bristol, had lost his health ashore, and wanted a good berth as cook to get to sea again. He'd hobbled down there that morning, he said, to get a smell of the salt.
Hobbled?
I was monstrously touched, and out of pure pity, I engaged him on the spot. Well, Jim, I thought I had only found a ship's cook, but it was a crew I had discovered. Between this fellow and myself, we've got together in a few days a company of the toughest old salts imaginable. Much better than the fellows blandly had recommended. Silver soon showed me what a mess of freshwater swabs they were. We replaced all but the sailing master, Captain Smollett.
Silver?
That's the cook's name, John Silver. Long John, they called him. A first-class fellow. In fact, I should like you to... Aha, here it is. Yes, I should like you to take this note to John Silver's little tavern, the Spyglass. You'll find it at the end of the western docks over there. It's to let him know that we sail tomorrow. Now, off you trot. I must return to meet Dr. Livesey off the London coach.
But, Squire, I don't know what Long John Silver looks like.
Oh, you'll recognize him. He's a seafaring man with one leg.
I'm looking for a Long John Silver. Mr. Silver, sir?
Yes, my lad. Such is my name, to be sure. And who may you be?
I have a note, sir, from Squire Trelawney.
Oh! You be our new cabin boy, Master Hawkins. Pleased I am to see you.
That man... It can't be... Black Dog? Stop him! It's Black Dog!
I don't care two coppers who he is. He hasn't paid his score. Harry, run and catch him. If it were Admiral Hawke, he shall pay his score. Who did you say he was? Black what?
Dog, sir. Has Mr. Trelawney not told you of the Buccaneers? He was one of them.
One of them swabs, was he? In my house? Was that you drinking with him, Morgan? Step up here. Now, Morgan, you never clapped your eyes on that black dog afore, did you now?
No, not I, sir.
You didn't even know his name, did you now?
No, sir.
By the powers, Tom Morgan, it's good for you. If you'd been mixed up with the like of that, you never would have put another foot in my house, you may later, Dad. This here's an honest establishment, and I won't tolerate anything, not anything against the law. Now, get back to your place for a lubber, Tom. He's not a bad sort, old Tom Morgan, only stupid. Not like this, what do you call him, this black dog. I don't know the name, not I. Yet I'm sure I've seen him here before. Yes. He used to come in here with a blind beggar, he did. What was his name?
Pew! His name was Pew.
True, it was Pew. That was his name for certain. Ooh, he looked a shark, he did. If we run down this black dog now, there'll be news for Admiral Trelawney. Harry's a good runner. Few seamen runs better than Harry. He should run him down hand over hand by the powers.
But he didn't. Harry returned out of breath and confessed that he had lost the track in the crowd. Silver determined that we should tell Mr. Trelawney at once, and together we set out for the squire's lodgings.
Duty's duty, Master Hawkins. We must tell Admiral Trelawney everything. Granted. It don't look good that I had this confounded son of a Dutchman sit in my own house and drink it of my own rum, but... Oh, the score! 3 goes of rum. Why? Shiver my timbers if I hadn't forgotten his score! His score!
Now, to tell you the truth, from the squire's very first mention of Long John, I had taken a fear in my mind that he might prove to be the very one-legged sailor whom I had watched for so long at the old Benbow. My suspicions were further strengthened by the presence of Black Dog in the spyglass. But looking at this clean, pleasant-tempered landlord laughing heartily in the bright Bristol sunshine, I would have gone bail for the innocence of Long John Silver.
Hey, what a precious old sea calf I am. You and me should get on well, Hawkins, for I'll take my davy. I should be rated ship's boy. But come now, stand by to go about. That note said we was to sail tomorrow, so 'tis important we report this here Black Dog affair to Admiral Trelawney at once, sir. Neither you nor me's come out of it with what I should make so bold as to call credit, but dash my buttons. There was a good one about my score, eh?
When we got to the inn, the squire and Dr. Livesey were seated together, finishing a quart of ale with a toast in it, before they should go aboard the schooner. Long John told his story from first to last, with a great deal of spirit and the most perfect truth.
Well, it is to be regretted that Black Dog has got away, but there's nothing either you or Hawkins could have done. You did right to tell us, Silver.
Thank you, sir. It's this old timber I hobble on. When I was an able-bodied master mariner, I'd have given chase and broached him in a brace of old shakes.
Quiet. Now, you'd best off and ready the crew. All hands aboard by 4 this afternoon.
Aye, aye, sir.
Well, Squire, I don't put much faith in your discoveries as a general thing, but I will say this. John Silver suits me.
The man's a perfect trump. Now, take your hat, Hawkins, and let's see the ship.
The Hispaniola lay some way out, and we went under figureheads and round the sterns of many other ships. At last we got alongside and were met and saluted as we stepped aboard by the mate, Mr. Arrow, an old sailor with earrings and a squint.
Welcome aboard, sir. Captain Smart's been asking to speak to you.
I am always at the captain's orders. Livesey, Hawkins, follow me. All well, I hope, Captain Smollett? All shipshape and seaworthy?
Well, sir, better speak plain, even at the risk of offence. I don't like this cruise. I don't like the men, and I don't like my officer. Yeah, that's short and sweet.
Perhaps, sir, you don't like the ship.
I can't speak to that, sir, not having seen her tried. She seems a clever craft. More I can't say.
Possibly, sir, you may not like your employer.
Stay a bit, stay a bit. You don't, you say, like this cruise. Why?
I was engaged, sir, on what we call sealed orders, to sail this ship for that gentleman where he should bid me. So far, so good. But now I find that every man before the mast knows more than I do. I don't call that fair, now do you?
No, I don't.
Next, I learn we're going after treasure. Hear it from my own hands, mind you. Now, treasure is ticklish work. I don't like treasure voyages on any account, and I don't like them above all when they're secret, and when the secret has been told to the parrot.
Silver's parrot?
It's a way of speaking. Blabbed, I mean.
You say you don't like the crew. Are they not good seamen?
I don't like them, sir. And I think I should have had the choosing of my own hands, if you go to that.
Perhaps you should. And you don't like Mr. Arrow?
I don't, sir. I believe he's a good seaman, but he's too free with the crew to be a good officer. A mate should keep himself to himself, shouldn't drink with the men before the mast.
You mean he drinks?
No, sir. Only that he's too familiar. Now, gentlemen, you'll forgive me for being blunt, but I have 3 points upon which I adamantly insist, and if all 3 are met, I shall join you on this cruise. Otherwise, I ask you to let me resign.
The impudence!
Name them.
First point. Order the hands to put the powder and the arms under the cabin, and not in the forehold. Second point. You 3, and your men, Redruth, Hunter, and Joyce, are presently berthed forward. You move your berths here, beside the cabin.
I see. You wish to make a garrison of the stern part of the ship, manned by our own people, and provided with all the arms and powder on board. In other words, you fear a mutiny.
No captain, sir, would be justified in going to sea if he had ground enough to say that. But I am responsible for the ship's safety and the life of every man jack aboard her. I see things going, as I think, not quite right, and I ask you to take certain precautions, that is all.
And the third point?
You have a map of an island, marked with crosses to show where treasure is.
How the blazes could you know that?
I even know its latitude and longitude. As I said, there's been too much blabbing already.
Far too much.
Don't look at me, Livesey. I never told that to a soul. It must have been you or Hawkins.
Well, gentlemen, I don't know who has this map, but I request that its location be kept a secret from the rest of the crew, from Mr. Arrow, and even from me. That is my third point.
Captain Smollett, when you began this exchange, I'll stake my wig you meant more than this.
I meant to get discharged. I had no thought that Mr. Trelawney would hear a word.
No more I would. Had Livesey not been here, I should have seen you to the deuce. As it is, I have heard you. I will do as you desire. but I think the worse of you.
That's as you please, sir. You'll find I do my duty.
Trelawney, contrary to all my notions, I believe you have managed to get two honest men on board with you. That man and John Silver.
What's this, Mr. Arrow?
We're changing of the powder, Long John.
Why, by the powers if we do, we'll miss the morning tide. Whose orders?
My orders. You may go below, Silver. Hans will want supper.
Aye, aye, sir.
Easy with that, man. Easy.
Why, if it ain't young Master Hawkins. How are you, Jim?
Excited, sir.
I expect you are. Here, you don't have to be a sir in me, Jim. Long John's good enough for pals like you and me.
You there, ship's boy. Go below with the cook and get some work.
But Squire Trelawney wanted me to watch...
Off with you. I'll have no favourites on my ship.
Best do as he says, laddie. The captain's the head of this here vessel, and you and me's only the hands. Come and meet an old friend of mine. Welcome to Long John's galley. Sit you down, Hawkins, and have a yarn with John. Ah, my old friend. Here's Captain Flint, my parrot. Captain Flint, this here's Jim Hawkins.
She's an African grey. My father had an engraving of one over the bar at the Admiral Benbow. They live a long time, don't they?
They lives forever, mostly. This bird, maybe 200, 300 years old, Hawkins, at least. And if anyone's seen more wickedness, it must be the devil himself. She sailed with England, the great Captain England, the pirate. She's been at Madagascar and at Malabar, the Suriname, Providence, and Portobello. She was at the fishing up of the wrecked plate ships. It's there she led pieces of 8, and little wonder, 350,000 of them, Hawkins. She was at the boarding of the Viceroy of the Indies out at Goa. She was. And to look at her, you'd think she was just a babby.
And by to go about, you nibbling skulker.
Yeah. You can't touch pitch and not be mucked. She's a handsome craft, she is, but she picked up the habit of swearing blue fire and got a taste for it, too. She'd do it afore the bishop if she could.
I thought Long John Silver the best of men. All the crew respected and even obeyed him. He had a way of talking to each and doing everybody some particular favour. To me, he was unweariedly kind, and always glad to see me in the galley, which he kept as clean as a new pin, the dishes hanging up burnished, and Captain Flint preening her feathers in one corner.
Father, you're getting ahead of yourself. You haven't even set sail yet.
Forgive me. Well, all that night we were in a great bustle getting things stowed in their place, dodging boatfuls of the squire's friends, Mr. Blandley and the like, who came on and off to wish him a good voyage and a safe return. I was dog-tired when a little before dawn the boatswain sounded his pipe.
Man the capstan bars.
Oh, the capstans! Oh, the capstans! Oh,
Raise the anchor.
raise anchor! Go there! Come on!
Unfurl the mainsail.
Unfurl the mainsail!
The sails began to draw, and the land and shipping to flit by on either side. We were off. The Hispaniola had begun her voyage to the Isle of Treasure. I'm not going to relate that voyage in detail. The ship proved to be a good ship, the crew were capable seamen, and Captain Smollett thoroughly understood his business. But before we came the length of Treasure Island, 2 or 3 things had happened.
What sort of things? Stop being mysterious, Father.
Well, Mr. Arrow, first of all, turned out even worse than the captain had feared. He had no command among the men, and people did what they pleased with him. But that was by no means the worst of it. After a day or 2 at sea, he began to appear on deck with hazy eye, red cheeks, stuttering tongue, and other marks of drunkenness. The mystery of it was we could never make out where he got the drink. Then, one dark night, he disappeared entirely and was seen no more. In the meantime, Squire Trelawney and Captain Smollett were still on pretty distant terms with one another.
I'll grant you this, sir. You've picked a good ship. She'll lie a point nearer the wind than a man has a right to expect of his own married wife.
Your praise does me too much honor.
But I don't care for your habit of spoiling the men. Double grog on birthdays and always a barrel of apples standing broached at the waist for anyone to help himself that has a fancy. Never knew good come of it yet. Spoil forecastle hands, make devils. That's my belief.
A trifle more of that man, and I should explode.
But good did come of the apple barrel, as you shall hear. For if it had not been for that, we should have had no warning, and might all have perished by the hand of treachery. It was the last day of our outward voyage by the captain's calculation. Sometime that night, or at latest before noon of the morrow, we should sight the treasure island. Everyone was in the bravest spirits, because we were now so near an end of the first part of our adventure. Just after sundown, when all my work was over and I was on my way to my berth, it occurred to me that I should like an apple. The watch was all forward, looking out for the island. Fearful lest the captain catch me, I got bodily into the barrel. There was scarce an apple left, and I was about to get out again, when a man sat heavily against the barrel.
No, not I. Flint was captain. I was quartermaster, along with my timber leg.
It was Silver's voice, and before I had heard a dozen words, I wouldn't have shown myself for all the world. For from those dozen words I understood that the lives of all the honest men aboard depended on me alone.
The same broadside I lost my leg, old Pugh lost his deadlights. It was a master surgeon that amputated me. Out of college and all. Latin by the bucket, Benedicamus Domino. Deo gratias and whatnot. But he was hanged like a dog and sun-dried like the rest at Corso Castle.
Did Flint do for him? I heard he didn't like no blabbers.
This was Dick, the youngest hand on board, and evidently full of admiration.
Nay, 'twas Roberts that was. I never sailed along with him. First with England, then with Flint. That's my story. And now here, on my own account, in a manner of speaking, and that account be treasure. Treasure. So, what say you, young Dick? You ready to come along with us and become a gentleman of fortune? Hey, hey.
I tell you now, I didn't have a quarter like this job till I had this talk with you, John. When I heard as Flint's men was all aboard, I was fearful, I don't mind telling you. And then, when Mr. Arrow went overboard, I thought my heart would give out. But now you've explained to me how it is and what I stands to gain. There's my hand on it.
And a finer figure of a gentleman of fortune I never clapped my eyes on.
By a gentleman of fortune, they plainly meant neither more nor less than a common pirate. And this little scene that I had overheard was the last act in the corruption of one of the honest hands. Perhaps the last one left aboard. But on this point, I was soon to be relieved. A third man strolled up and sat down by the party. It was the coxswain, Israel Hands, a careful, wily old seaman, and a great confidant of Long John Silver.
Dick Square.
Oh, I'd know Dick was square. He's no fool, is Dick. But look here, here's what I want to know. How long are we going to stand off and on like a blessed bumpo? I've had almost enough of Captain Smollett. He's hazed me long enough, by thunder. I want to go into that cabin, I do. I want their pickles and wines and that.
Israel, your head ain't much account, nor ever was. But you're able to hear, I reckon, leastways your ears is big enough. Oh, hear what I say. You'll birth foreign, and you'll live hard, and you'll speak soft, and you'll keep sober till I give the word.
Well, I don't say no, do I? What I say is when.
When? By the powers, I'll tell you when. The last moment I can manage it, that's when. Here's a first-rate seaman, Captain Smollett, sails this blessed ship for us. Here's this squire and doctor with a map and such. I don't know where it is, do I? No more do you. Well, then, I mean this squire and doctor shall find the stuff and help us to get it aboard. If I had my way, I'd have Captain Smollett work us back into the trades, at least. Then we'd have no blessed miscalculations and a spoonful of water a day. But I know what sort you are. So, I'll finish with them at the island as soon as the gold's on board. And a pity it is. But you're never happy till you're drunk. Split my sides, I've a sick heart to sail with the likes of you.
Nothing wrong with a bit of fun. You might be a kind of chaplain, John, but by all accounts you was on your own amongst Flint's men. They wasn't so high and dry, no how, but took their fling like jolly companions, every one.
Aye. And where are they now, eh? Pugh was that sort and he died a beggar man. Flint was and he died of rum at Savannah. Aye. They was a sweet crew, they was. Only, where are they now, eh?
When we do lay him athwart, the captain and the squire and all, well, what are we to do with them?
There's the man for me. Dick here's got a heart for business. Well, what would you think, eh? Put 'em ashore like maroons? That would have been England's way. Or cut 'em down like so much pork? That would have been Flint's or Billy Bones's way.
Oh, Billy was the man for that. Dead men don't bite, says he. Well, he's dead now himself. He knows the long and the short of it now.
I'm an easy man. I'm quite the gentleman, in fact. But duty is duty, mates. I gives my vote. Death. Huh? When I'm in Parliament riding in my coach, I don't want none of these sea lawyers in the cabin a coming home unlooked for like the devil at prayers. Wait is what I say. But when the time comes, why, let her rip.
John, you're a man.
You'll say so, Israel, when you see. One thing I claim. Just one. I claim Trelawney. I'll wring his calf's head off his body with these hands. Dick, you just jump up like a sweet lad and give me an apple to wet my pipe like.
I should have leapt out and run for it, but my limbs and heart alike misgave me. I heard Dick begin to rise.
Stow that! Don't you get stuck into that bilge, John. Let's have a go at the rum. If there's any left after what you gave to Mr. Arrow.
Dick, go on for the pannikin from the galley and bring it up.
Aye, aye, Captain.
He's the last, that boy. Not another man of 'em will join.
Why, then they'll join Smollett and the others in Davy Jones' parlour.
So there were still faithful men aboard. I needed to find the captain and my companions and tell them what I had discovered before all was lost. The lies, the deceit, the cold-blooded treachery of the one man we had all trusted, Long John Silver. But just as I made ready to leap from a barrel...
Land ho! Land ho, I say!
Too late. We had reached our journey's end. Treasure Island. Part 2. Shore, Sea, and Captain Silver. There was a great rush of feet across the deck. In the commotion, I slipped out of the barrel and joined Dr. Livesey and the captain at the bow. Ahead of us, emerging from the mist, were 2 low hills about a couple of miles apart, and rising behind one of them, a third and higher hill whose peak was still buried in the fog. All 3 seemed sharp and conical in figure.
Now, men, has any one of you ever seen that land ahead?
I have, sir. I've watered there with a trader. I was the cook.
The anchorage is on the south, behind an islet, I fancy.
Yes, sir. Skeleton Island, they calls it. It were a main place for pirates once, and a hand we had on board knowed all their names for it. That hill to the nor'ard they calls the foremast hill. There are 3 hills in a row, running south'ard, fore, main, and mizzen, sir. But the main, that's the big un with the cloud on it, sir. They usually calls the spyglass.
Thank you, Silver. I can see we shall have need of your knowledge. You may go.
Why, if it ain't young Hawkins? This here island's a sweet spot for a lad to get ashore on. You'll bathe and you'll climb trees, and you'll hunt goats you will, and you'll get aloft on them hills like a goat yourself. What a pleasant thing it is to be young and have 10 toes. When you want to go a bit of exploring, you just ask old John and he'll put up a snack for you to take along. He will.
Why so grave, Jim? Long John's right. That island's just the thing for a lad like you.
Doctor, get the captain and the squire down to the cabin. Then make some pretense to send for me. I have terrible news.
It was fully half an hour before I was sent for, and a further 20 minutes before I had related all that I had heard in the apple barrel.
Well, Captain, you were right, and I was wrong. I own myself an ass.
No more an ass than I, sir.
Silver's a very remarkable man.
He'd look remarkably well from a yardarm. But we must go on. If I gave the word to go about, they would rise at once.
Agreed. Besides, we have time before us. At least, until this treasure's found.
And we have faithful hands. We 3, Redruth, Hunter, and Joyce. That makes 6 to their 19.
Please, Dr. Livesey, it makes 7.
By Gemini, that's the spirit.
I don't much care for those odds, but thanks to Hawkins here, we have surprise on our side. We must lay to, if you please, and keep a bright lookout. It would be pleasanter to come to blows, I know, but there's no help for it till we know our men. Silver may not have won them all over, but how to find out who's honest, that's the point.
Jim here can help us. The men are not shy with him, and Jim is a noticing lad.
Hawkins, I put prodigious faith in you.
So it was that the following morning I found myself on deck with the hands, as Long John Silver guided the steersman and conned the ship up the muddy river inlet. The anchorage was all but landlocked, buried in woods, and would have been impossible to find without Silver's expert direction.
Careful, Captain. There's a strong scow with the ebb.
Poisonous, bright foliage surrounded us, coming right down to high water mark. There was not a breath of air moving, nor a sound but that of the surf booming half a mile away. A peculiar, stagnant smell hung over the anchorage, a smell of sodden leaves and rotting tree trunks.
I don't know about treasure, Jim, but I'll stake my wig there's fever here.
We're here, Captain.
Lower the anchor. Lower the anchor, I say!
You heard the captain, you lazy dogs. Lower the anchor.
Magnificent creatures, these parrots, eh, Livesey? Did you see that? Mutiny, it is plain, hangs over us like a thundercloud. Found out anything yet, Jim?
Nothing, sir.
Well, keep at it, my boy.
In the meantime, we must rely on Silver to keep the crew in order. He's as anxious as we not to show his hand too quickly.
My lads, we've had a hot day and we're all tired and out of sorts. A turn ashore will hurt nobody. You can take the gigs, and as many as please can go ashore for the afternoon. I'll fire a gun half an hour before sundown.
The captain whipped out of sight in a moment, leaving Silver to arrange the party. Dr. Livesey and the squire followed him below, and I fancy it was well they did so. Had they been on deck, they could no longer so much as have pretended not to understand the situation. It was plain as day. Silver was the captain, and a mighty rebellious crew he had.
Look sharp there, Morgan, or it's you will be going overboard in a keel hauling.
We're O'Brien's fault.
Don't you give me none of your jaw, Morgan.
At last the party was made up. 6 fellows were to stay on board, and the remaining 13, including Silver, took to the boats. Then it was that there came into my head the first of the mad notions that contributed so much to save our lives. In a jiffy, I slipped over the side and curled up in the foresheets of the nearest boat, and almost at the same moment, she shoved off.
Is that you, Jim? Keep your head down. Long John's in a terrible temper. That's why I took this boat and not his.
Morgan, who you a blabbing to?
No one.
Quick, man, out with it.
It's only me, Long John. I wanted to go a bit of exploring, like you said.
Did you now? Well, you stick close to me, Jim, when we get to the shore. Real close, eh?
I didn't care for the dangerous intimacy this imported, so before our boat had reached the shore, I caught a branch, swung myself out, and plunged into the nearest thicket.
Jim! Jim, come back, boy!
But you may suppose I paid no heed. Jumping, ducking, and breaking through, I ran straight before my nose till I could run no longer. I had crossed a marshy tract full of willows, bulrushes, and odd, outlandish, swampy trees, and come out upon the skirts of an open piece of undulating, sandy country. I now felt the joy of exploration, and began turning hither and thither among the trees and pools. After perhaps an hour in this happy pursuit, I caught the murmur of raised voices from within a wooded thicket. Mindful that I was neglecting my business, I crawled on all fours towards them.
Tom Morgan, my old mate. It's because I think's gold dust of you. Gold dust, you may later that. And I'm here of a warning of you.
Silver, I've known you many a year. Why, ain't I been one of your most loyal customers at the Spyglass? You're old and you're honest. Will you let yourself be led away by a mess of swabs? Mutiny. As sure as God sees me, I'd sooner lose my hand if I turn again my duty. In heaven's name, what was that?
That? Oh, I reckon that'll be Alan.
Alan? Then rest his soul for a true seaman. And as for you, John Silver, long you've been a mate of mine, but you're a mate of mine no more. If I die like a dog, I'll die in my duty. Ah, you've killed Alan, have you? Kill me too if you can, but I defies you.
No one defies me, Tom Morgan. No one.
In a flash, he'd whipped out his crutch and sent it hurtling through the air. It struck poor Tom, point foremost, and with stunning violence, right between the shoulders. To judge from the sound, his back was broken on the spot.
It killed him.
No, Silver's knife did that.
Tom, Captain Flint only feared one thing. One thing in the whole wide world. And you know what that was. Me. Time to gather the faithful.
The men were coming. They had already slain 2 of the honest hands. After Tom and Alan, might not I come next? I had to get away. I extricated myself from the undergrowth with what speed and silence I could manage. As soon as I was clear of the thicket, I ran as I never ran before, scarce minding the directing of my flight, so long as it led me from the murderers. I stopped at the foot of a little hill with 2 peaks. From among these rocks, I could make out the Hispaniola in her anchorage. Fortunately, the sparse pines which peppered the hillside afforded an excellent screen, preventing those on board the ship from seeing me. Being closer to the shore, the air was fresher here, too. It was a lonely spot, or so I imagined.
Hello? Who's there?
Thinking it was one of the party from the Hispaniola, I was readying myself for flight when the most extraordinary thing happened.
Are you all right? Who are you?
I'm poor Ben Gunn, I am. And I haven't spoken with a Christian these 3 years.
3 years? Were you shipwrecked?
Nay, mate. Marooned. 3 years agone, and lived on goats since then, and berries, and oysters. But, mate, my heart is sore for a Christian diet. You mightn't happen to have a piece of cheese about you now? Many's a long night I've dreamed of cheese. Toasted, mostly. And woke up again, and here I were.
If I ever get aboard again, you shall have cheese by the stone.
Oh, thank you, young... What do you call yourself?
Jim.
Jim. Jim. Well now, Jim, you wouldn't think to look at these old rags and this old sun-browned skin of mine, but... I'm rich.
Rich?
Ah, Jim. You'll bless your stars, you will. You was the first that found me. Now, tell me true. That ain't Flint's ship out there in Captain Kidd's anchorage, is it?
Flint is dead, but there are some of Flint's hands aboard. Worse luck.
Not a man with one leg.
Silver. He's the ringleader.
If you were sent by Long John, I'm as good as pork, and I knows it.
Looking at this trembling, ragged old beggar man, clothed in a patchwork of old ship's canvas, held together by a system of the most various and incongruous fastenings, I felt instinctively that I could trust him. I confided in him the whole story of our voyage and the predicament in which we found ourselves. When I had done, he patted me on the head.
You're a good lad, Jim. And you're all in a clove hitch, ain't you? Well, you just put your trust in Ben Gunn. Ben Gunn's the man to do it. Would you think it likely that your squire would prove a liberal-minded one in case of help?
The squire is a most liberal man.
Oh, what I mean is, would he be likely to come down to the tune of, say, £1,000 out of money that's as good as a man's own already?
I'm sure he would. As it was, all hands were to share.
And a passage home?
The squire's a gentleman. Besides, if we got rid of the others, we should want you to help work the vessel home.
Ah, so you would. Most liberal and fair. Not like old Flint. I was here when he buried his treasure, Jim. Him and 6 strong seamen. They was ashore nigh on a week, and us standing off and on in the old walrus. Billy Bones was the mate then, Long John the quartermaster. Then, one fine day, the signal went up.
That's it, lads. They're coming back. Let down the ladder, Ben.
Aye, aye, Mr. Bones, sir.
Long John, let's go below and fetch up some victuals. They'll be hungry after a week ashore.
They? Look again, Billy, mate. 'Tis only the captain himself.
Flint alone? And the others?
And don't care for wagging tongues, do he? Still, 6 against 1 and naught to show for it but a bit of blood on his brow. That's mighty pretty, that is. Welcome back, Captain, sir. I takes it the other men won't be a-joining us.
Not until the day of judgment, they won't.
6 less mouths to feed, and the treasure, our treasure,
Where'd you bury it? Is it safe?
You can go ashore if you like, Billy Bones, and stay. As for the ship, she'll beat up for more, by thunder. Prepare to set sail!
Flint never did tell where it was buried. But I was in another ship 3 years back when we sighted this island. Boys, here's Flint's treasure. Let's land and find it. 12 days they looked for it, and every day they had the worst word for me, until one fine morning, all hands went aboard.
And as for you, Benjamin Gunn, here's a musket and a spade and a pickaxe. You can stay here and find Flint's money for yourself.
Well, Jim, 3 years have I been here, and not a bite of a Christian diet from that day to this.
You'll get your fill. If only we could get back aboard the Hispaniola.
Well, there's my boat that I made with my own 2 hands. I keep her under the white rock, down there, beyond them trees. You see, the one as looks like a spigot of milk-white cheese. If the worst come to the worst, we might try that after dark. Ah! What's that?
It's too early for the captain's sundown gun.
That weren't no ordinary gun. That were a long 9. Look, there's a firing of that little jolly boat. Them's not your friends in that boat, is they?
That's Captain Smollett and the others. We have to help them, Ben.
Give way! Now, row! We mustn't mind if we swamp her now. If we can't get ashore, all's up.
Whoever's in charge of that gun certainly has an eye for it.
It's Israel Hands. I can see the brandy-faced rascal's impudent leer from here.
Begging your pardon, sir. But I heard tell as how Israel was Flint's gunner.
Then we need to match him for skill. Who's the best shot?
Mr. Trelawney, out and away!
Mr. Trelawney, will you please pick me off one of those men? Hands, if possible.
It would be a pleasure. Trim the boot so I can aim. Blast! Hands ducked at the last minute. I hit the fellow behind.
No matter. One less mutineer for them to hang in England. Saves row. Now, row.
30 or 40 strokes, and we should beach her. Then it's only another 100 yards or so to the stockade marked on Flint's map.
They've been hit. The boat's sinking.
Don't worry, lad. Tain't too deep. They can wade ashore from there. Most likely, they'll be heading for the old stockade, as was made years and years ago by Flint. Using their headpieces, they are. The stockade's the safest place on the island.
Only if they can get there in one piece. Look along the shore. It's Silver and the mutineers.
We saved most of the victuals, Captain, but the rest of them guns is useless. They're too wide.
Then let the mutineers have them. Pick up what you can and let's away.
Stockade's on the other side of those trees.
What in Hades?
Cannonball, sir. Mr. Hands seems to be improving his aim.
I found the stockade, sir. The gate's hanging wide open. Bridge loose.
We've got to help them.
Nay, mate. Ben gun is fly. Rum wouldn't bring me there. No, rum wouldn't. Till I see your born gentleman and gets his word of honour to see right by old Ben.
Well, I can't stand by and do nothing. Goodbye, Ben.
When Ben Gunn is wanted, you know where to find him, Jim. Just where you found him today. And bring cheese.
Hunter, secure this gate and then get up to the blockhouse and make sure it's safe. Gray, you take the east corner, Joyce the west. I'll man the entrance.
Be I going, Doctor?
Come, my man. You're going home.
I wish I wish I'd had a look at him with a gun first.
I should never have brought you to this forsaken place, Tom. Say you forgive me, won't you?
Would that be respectful, like, from me to you, Squire? Howsoever, so be it. Amen.
He's gone.
What's happening, Captain? Are they launching an attack?
It's not us they're shooting at.
Not us. Who then?
Why, bless my buttons, it's Hawkins!
Hawkins! Give him covering fire, men! There he is! This way, Jim!
I can't, sir. The guns are too hot for me.
Leave that to us, lad. Mr. Trelawney, if you please.
My pleasure. Plenty more sauce where that came from.
Jim, the gate's barred. You'll have to jump and take my hand.
Don't let me go!
Pull him over, quickly!
Permission to come aboard, Captain.
The doctor and I retired to the blockhouse, leaving the rest to guard the stockade. In this rough building made of unsquared trunks of pine, I related my adventures since leaving the Hispaniola, including my meeting with Mad Ben Gunn.
Mad? No. A man who has been 3 years biting his nails on a desert island, Jim, can't expect to appear as sane as you or me. Was it cheese you said he had a fancy for?
Yes, sir. Cheese.
Well, Jim, just see the good that comes of being dainty in your food. Now, you never saw me take snuff out of this little box, did you? The reason being that inside I carry a piece of Parmesan cheese. Well, that's for Ben Gunn. That came from the entrance. Come on!
Damn your eyes, man. Can't you tell a flag of truce when you see one?
And what do you want with your flag of truce?
Captain Silver, sir, to come on board and make terms.
Captain Silver. I don't know him. Who's he?
Me, sir. These poor lads have chosen me captain after your desertion, sir. We're willing to submit if we can come to terms, and no bones about it. All I ask is your word, Captain Smollett, to let me safe and sound out of this here stockade, and 1 minute to get out of shot before a gun is fired.
If there's any treachery, it'll be on your side. Joyce, open the gate.
A sweet, pretty place you have of it here. Ah, there's Jim. Top of the morning to you, Jim. Doctor, here's my service. Why, there you all are together like a big, happy family in a manner of speaking.
That's far enough, Silver.
Aye, it's a main tricky thing to be sure of climbing up all this sand. Ain't you going to let me inside and sit down, Captain?
Why, Silver, if you'd please to be an honest man, you might have been sitting in your galley. You're either my ship's cook and treated handsome, or Captain Silver, a common mutineer and pirate, and then you can go hang.
Right you are, Captain Smollett, thank ye. I'll sit here to parley. Only you'll have to give me a hand up again, that's all.
If you have anything to say, my man, better say.
Well, here it is, Squire. We want that treasure, and we'll have it. You have a chart, haven't you?
That's as maybe.
Oh, you have, I know that. You needn't be so husky with a man now. You give us that chart to get the treasure by, and stop shooting poor seamen. You do that, and we'll offer you a choice. Either come aboard along of us once the treasure's shipped, and then I'll give you my affidavy upon my word of honor to clap you somewhere safe ashore. Or, if that ain't to your fancy, then you can stay here, you can.
Is that all?
Every last word. Refuse that, and you've seen the last of me but musket balls.
Very good. Now you'll hear me. If you'll come up, one by one, unarmed, I'll engage to clap you all in irons and take you home to a fair trial in England. And if you won't, my name is Alexander Smollett, and I'll see you all to Davy Jones. You can't find the treasure, You can't sail the ship on your own, and you can't fight us.
We slipped away under the very eyes of your mutinous rabble.
Now tramp, my lad. For in the name of heaven, I'll put a bullet in your back when next we meet.
Give me a hand up.
Not I.
Who'll give me a hand up?
None here. Crawl away on your belly, Silver, like the snake in Eden.
Before an hour's out, I'll stove in your blockhouse like a rum puncheon. Laugh, by thunder, laugh! But before an hour's out, you'll laugh on the other side. And them that die shall be the lucky ones.
Silver was as good as his word. Before the sun had set, the stockade was attacked, and with such force that all was nearly lost.
How many, Doctor?
3. 2 close together, 1 farther west.
7 from the north. Make that 6.
Good shooting, sir. Jim, reload his gun.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Up and at them, lads!
Here they come, men. Make every shot count.
They're scaling the walls.
Joyce is down.
They've breached the stockade. Off the walls and fight him in the open. Catch the sis. Hawkins, look to your...
Captain! Captain Smollett!
Grab a cutlass, Jim. It's every man for himself. Try havoc, and let's slip the dogs of war!
How long the battle raged, I cannot say. The squire fought like a bull, the doctor and the others no less bravely. As for me, I found myself at one point before Job Anderson, the boatswain. I remember vividly his raised cutlass, the leer of hatred and triumph in his eye, and the sudden look of astonishment as he was cut down from behind by honest Abraham Gray. And in this breath of time, the fight was over and the victory was ours. The boarders fled into the forest, and we saw at once the price we had paid for victory.
Joyce is dead. Hunter, too.
Have they run?
All that could. Gray and I have just closed the gate, and we counted 5 of them will never run again.
We were 7 to 19 at starting, or thought we were. Now we're 4 to 8. It's good odds, I say. Good odds.
Carry him into the blockhouse. Jim, fetch my medical bag.
Did Captain Smollett die?
No, his wounds were grievous, but not dangerous. Anderson's ball, for it was Job that had shot him, had broken his shoulder blade and touched the lung, but not badly. He was sure to recover, the doctor said, but he must not walk or move his arm, nor so much as speak when he could help it. When he had patched up the captain, Dr. Livesey took me to one side.
Jim, if ever there was a time we needed help, this is it. I'm going to see Ben Gunn.
But Doctor, what about Long John?
To Davy Jones with Long John. The squire and I have discussed it, and it's the only way. Try to stay out of trouble while I'm gone. I'm relying on you.
The mention of Ben Gunn put me in mind of the White Rock and the boat which sheltered underneath it. Then it was that I conceived a foolish plan. I laid hold of a brace of pistols, and without a word to my companions, slipped out of the stockade, heading for the east coast. This was my second folly, far worse than my first, as I left but 2 sound men to guard the blockhouse. But, like the first, it was a help towards saving all of us.
There you are.
Night had fallen when I laid my hands on the rough sides of Ben Gunn's homemade boat. It was a rude, lopsided framework of tough wood, and stretched upon that a covering of goatskin with the hair inside. The thing was extremely small, even for me, but it was exceedingly light and portable.
Down to the water with you.
I had not then seen a coracle, such as the ancient Britons made, but I have seen one since, and I can give you no fairer idea of Ben Gunn's boat than by saying it was like the first and worst coracle ever made by man. My notion was to slip out, cut the Hispaniola adrift, and let her go ashore where she fancied. I had quite made up my mind that the mutineers, after their repulse that evening, had nothing nearer their hearts than to up anchor and away to sea. This, I thought, would be a fine thing to prevent.
Stay straight, won't you?
As I paddled my little coracle towards the ship, I could see a great fire on shore, by which the defeated pirates lay carousing. The jolly boats were drawn up on the beach, and I saw Long John stumping among the hands, doling out rum. The Hispaniola was mine for the taking.
50 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
Slowly, silently, I drew alongside the ship and laid hold of her hawser.
Drinking the devil had
Ah!
Ah, shut your bitch. O'Brien, where's that rum?
It was the coxswain, Israel Hands, plainly the worse for drink, and in the captain's cabin. O'Brien was an Irish hand, whom even the squire had singled out as the possessor of a prodigious thirst. With luck, he likewise would be too tipsy to think of looking through the window. As quietly as I could, I secured the coracle to one of the lines dangling over the side of the ship. Then I opened my gully and began to cut the strands of the hawser.
O'Brien, if you've been a-drinking them port wines, I'll kill you. But so help me, I'll kill you anyway.
But 2 strands remained when the ship gave a lurch and the hawser snapped. I was thrown back into the coracle, striking my head against one of the spars. My final thoughts, before darkness supervened, were of home and the old Admiral Benbow. It was broad day when I awoke, plagued by a terrible thirst. The first thing I beheld was a black flag emblazoned with the skull and crossbones. The Jolly Roger. It hung limply from the ship's colour lines, for there was barely a breath of wind. The Hispaniola was drifting southward with the current, with Treasure Island lying 2 to 3 miles to the west, and bearing the coracle along in its wake. I saw at once that my scheme had failed. The schooner had not come ashore, but neither was it under sail. Hans and O'Brien must surely have noticed that the ship was no longer at the anchorage.
They must still be drunk as owls.
Determined to snatch a brief look through the cabin window, I began pulling on the line connecting the coracle to the ship. But either the goatskin hull was weakened by the night's exposure to salt water, or else it had been damaged by my fall. At either event, the thing began to fill with water and sink. I was forced to leap for the side of the ship, or else be taken down with it. As I hung there, watching Ben Gunn's coracle make its final journey to the bottom of the sea, it struck me that I was now without retreat on the pirate ship Hispaniola. I climbed over the side of the ship with as much caution as I could muster, and made my way to the afterdeck. There were the 2 watchmen, sure enough. O'Brien on his back, as stiff as a handspike, his arms stretched out like those of a crucifix, and the wicked blade of the coxswain's dirk protruding from his chest. And Israel Hands, propped against the bulwarks, his head down and a dark pool of blood spread around him upon the planks.
Come aboard, Master Hawkins.
Mr. Hands, are you much hurt?
If that doctor was aboard, I'd be right enough in a couple of turns. But I don't have no manner of luck. As for that swab O'Brien, he's good and dead, he is. He weren't no seaman anyhow.
I've come aboard to take possession of this ship, Mr. Hands, and you'll please regard me as your captain until further notice.
And with that, I ran to the colour lines, handed down that cursed black flag, the Jolly Roger, and chucked it overboard. Hans watched me keenly and slyly throughout, his chin all the while on his breast.
I reckon, Captain Hawkins, You'll kind of want to get ashore now.
I shall, but I'm not going back to Captain Kidd's anchorage. I mean to get into the North Inlet and beach her quietly there.
To be sure you does. But who's to sail this ship? Without I gives you a hint, you ain't that man as far as I can tell. Now look here. You gives me food and drink and an old scarf or handkerchief to tie my leg up, and I'll tell you how to sail her.
I had little choice, and we struck our bargain on the spot. We made a good team. Hans was an excellent pilot, and I was a good, prompt subaltern. For the rest of the day, we sailed the ship up to the North Inlet. From time to time, I would catch Hans looking at me from where he lay next to O'Brien. An odd smile played across his face. It was a smile that had in it something of both pain and weakness. But there was, besides that, a grain of derision, a shadow of treachery in his expression as he craftily watched and watched and watched me at my work.
Now, look there. There's a pet bit of beach to ship in. Fine flat sand, never a cat's paw. Trees all round of it, and flowers are blowing like a garden. Starboard a little, Captain Hawkins. So, steady! Keep your eyes on the shore, lad.
We had reached the entrance to the northern anchorage, and the schooner had to be nicely handled to be got in.
And once beached, how shall we get her off again? Israel?
I looked around, and there was Hans, no longer lying down, but already halfway towards me. In his hand was the bloody dirk he'd used to kill O'Brien.
You've had a merry time of it, Jim. But dead men don't bite, as the saying goes. Now the ship's safe. 'Tis time to return her to Captain Silver.
Mr. Hans. Israel.
The Hispaniola had struck the bank at full tilt, and swift as a blow, canted over to the port side till the deck stood at an angle of 45 degrees. Hans and I were capsized in a second, both of us rolling into the scuppers. But the dead man O'Brien, with his arms still spread, tumbled stiffly past us and over the side of the ship into the shallow water beyond. I was the first afoot again. Quick as thought, I sprang into the mizzen shrouds, which were now overhanging the side of the ship. I rattled up hand over hand, and didn't draw breath till I was seated on the cross trees. Below me, wafting gently in the clear water, I could see O'Brien.
Ain't nowhere for you to run now, you little monkey.
Hauling his wounded leg behind him, Hans began clambering towards me. It was only then that I bethought me of my brace of pistols. I drew them at once.
One more step, Mr. Hans, and I'll blow your brains out. Dead men don't bite, as the saying goes.
I'd have had you but for that there lurch, but I don't have no luck. Reckon I'll have to strike, which comes hard for a master mariner to a ship's yoga.
It was all over in the blink of an eye. Hans threw his knife, which sang like an arrow through the air. I felt a blow, and then a sharp pang. And there I was, pinned by the shoulder to the mast. In the horrid pain and surprise of the moment, both my pistols went off, and both escaped out of my hands. They did not fall alone. The coxswain loosed his grasp upon the shrouds, and plunged headfirst into the water, coming to rest beside the corpse of his former shipmate.
Mr. Hans.
A fish or two whipped past their bodies. I lay pinned to the mast, blood soaking my shirt, and shuddered violently. Oddly enough, that very shudder did the business. The knife, in fact, had come the nearest in the world to missing me altogether. It held me by a mere pinch of skin, and this the shudder tore away. The blood ran down faster, to be sure, but I was my own master again. I bandaged my shoulder as best I could and waded ashore. There lay the schooner, clear at last from buccaneers and ready for our own men to board and get to sea again. Night was falling, and I had nothing nearer my fancy than to get home to the stockade and boast of my achievements. So thinking, and in famous spirits, I began to set my face homeward for the blockhouse and my companions. At last, after several hours of weary traipsing, I came upon the stockade. The western end was already steeped in moonshine. The rest and the blockhouse itself still lay in a black shadow. There was not a soul stirring, nor a sound beside the noises of the breeze.
Where was the sentry?
Where indeed? I began to fear that something had gone wrong while I was absent. As I stealthily drew nearer, my heart was suddenly and greatly lightened. It is not a pleasant noise in itself, and I've often complained of it at other times, but just then it was like music to hear my friends snoring together so loud and peaceful in their sleep. By this time I had got to the door. It was dark within, and the thought occurred to me that I should creep in and lie down in my own place and enjoy their faces when they found me in the morning. With my arms before me, I walked in. My foot struck something yielding. It was a sleeper's leg. And then a shrill voice broke forth out of the darkness.
Who's there? Don't let him get away.
I got him, Long John.
Good work, Dick. Good. George, open the lantern and let's see our mouse. Shiver me timbers. Jim Hawkins. Dropped in like, hey, well, I take that friendly. I've always liked you, I have, for a lad of spirit and a picture of my own self when I was young and handsome.
Where are my friends?
Friends? Them as was here, you mean? I'm afraid they've gone dead again, you, my cock. Ungrateful scamp was what the doctor called you, and that Captain Smollett was raging something fierce about you having deserted your duty.
You haven't answered my question. Where are Dr. Livesey and the others?
You'd be a lucky one as knowed that.
You'll perhaps batten down your hatches till you're spoke to, my friend. Yesterday morning, Mr. Hawkins, down came Dr. Livesey with a flag of truce.
Captain Silver, you're sold out. The ship's gone.
So I seen. Very clever of you, that was.
Indeed. Now, I propose an exchange. I offer you the stores, brandy, blockhouse, and this.
And what do you want in return?
Your word that we shall be allowed to leave the stockade unmolested and take refuge elsewhere on the island.
Dick there's ill, and there's others as is wounded. What say you leave your medicine chest too?
It would serve you no purpose. Besides, it's my duty as a doctor and a Christian to look after the sick. You let us go, and I'll return each morning to treat your men.
How many are you to leave?
4, and one of us wounded.
4? I counts 5. Doctor, Squire, Captain, that traitor Grey, and young Master Hawkins.
I don't know where the boy is, confound him. Nor I don't much care. We're about sick of him.
Those were his very words. About sick of him. What do you say to that, eh, Jim?
I say this. Here you are, in a bad way. Ship lost, treasure lost, men lost. Your whole business gone to wreck. And if you want to know who did it, it was I. I was in the apple barrel the night we sighted land and reported every word you said to the captain.
You was listening, you little sneak.
Hold your tongue, Dick Johnson, or I'll fillet it out and hold it for you. Go on, Jim.
As for the schooner, It was I who cut her cable, and it was I that killed the men you had aboard of her, and it was I who brought her where you'll never see her more, not one of you.
Hans and O'Brien dead?
I've had the top of this business from the first. I no more fear you than I fear a fly. Kill me, if you please, or spare me. But if you spare me, bygones is bygones, and when you fellows are in court for piracy, I'll do all I can to save you from the gallows.
'Twas you who sighted Black Dog, and 'twas you who stole the chart from old Billy Bones, first and last. We've split upon Jim Hawkins.
Cut his throat.
Avast there! Maybe you thought you was captain here, George Mary, by the powers, but I'll teach you better. Cross me, and you'll go to where many a good man's gone before. I like this boy now. I never seen a better boy than that. He's more of a man than any of you rats. And what I say is this. Let me see him that'll lay a finger on him.
I'll be hanged if I'll be hazed by you, John Silver. Council, outside.
Council? But oughtn't we to ask for permission? Them's the rules, aren't they?
Permission granted, Dick. You step outside and has your little council. Here, take the lantern, so you won't be afeard of the dark. Look you here, Jim Hawkins. You're within half a plank of death, and what's a sight worse, of torture. But I'll stand by you through thick and thin. I didn't mean to, no, not till you spoke up. But I see you was the right sort. I'm your last card, Jim. And by the living thunder, you are mine. They're going to throw me off, you mark my words. 'Tis the black spot for old John.
You mean all's lost?
Aye, by gum, I do. Ship gone, neck gone. That's about the size of it. I'll save your life if so be as I can from them. But see here, Jim, tit for tat. You save Long John from swinging.
What I can do, that I'll do.
It's a bargain. You speak up, Plucky, and by thunder, I've a chance.
But the black spot...
Long John's not beat yet. I still has a trick in my pocket.
Dick, take this piece of paper and place it in Silver's left hand.
Right.
There. 'Tis done.
Oh, the black spot, eh? Why, look here now. This ain't lucky. You've gone and cut this out of a Bible. No good'll come of that. You'll all swing now, I reckon. Which soft-hearted lubber had a Bible?
It were mine.
Best get to your prayers, Dick. You've seen your slice of luck, you has. Now, what's it say? Deposed. That's it, is it? 'Tis very pretty wrote, to be sure. Like print, I swear. Shame your black spot ain't worth a biscuit.
You're deposed, and that's that. Now hand over the boy. We've had enough of your bungling.
Bungling, is it, George Mary? By God, if you could understand how bad this cruise has been bungled, you'd beg me to lead you. We're that near the gibbet that my neck's stiff with thinking on it. And all thanks to hotheads like Anderson and Hans and other ruination fools of you. Lost the ship, yes, but another's on its way.
Another ship?
Aye. A consort sent by Mr. Trelawney's friend Blandley, case of anything happening to the Hispaniola. You wants a passage back on that there ship, then we needs a hostage to bargain with. Hawkins is that hostage. That's why we must keep him alive. And then there's this.
Captain Flint's treasure map.
Aye, George. You lost the ship. I found the treasure. Who's the better man at that, eh? And now I resign, by thunder. Elect whom you please to be your captain now. I'm done with it.
Oh, Silver! Silver forever!
Silver. So that's the tune, is it, George? I reckon you'll have to wait another turn, friend. And lucky for you as I'm not a vengeful man now. Get some kip, and tomorrow we'll go a-hunting for treasure.
And that was the end of the night's business.
So Silver was now on the side of the squire?
Silver was on nobody's side but his own. And yet, wicked as he was, I pitied him the dark perils that environed him, and the shameful gibbet that awaited him.
Ahoy there! Dr. Livesey to come on board.
Top of the morning to you, Doctor. Open the gate there. Bright and early, to be sure. And it's the early bird, as the saying goes, that gets the rations.
I have some more quinine for Dick's malaria.
Thank you kindly, sir. And we've quite a surprise for you, too. Out you come.
Jim! How... I should wish, with your permission, to talk with the boy in private.
Don't you trust him?
Hawkins, will you give me your word of honor as a young gentleman, for gentleman you are, though poor born? Your word of honor not to slip the cable?
I promise.
Then step outside and talk with yon doctor.
No, damn it!
Silence!
No, you've got to stop him!
Silence, you dolts! I'm the captain here. I'm the captain of my fate.
So, Jim, here you are. As you have brewed, so shall you drink, my boy. Heaven knows I cannot find it in my heart to blame you, but, by George, what you did was downright cowardly.
Doctor, you might spare me. I've blamed myself enough. My life's forfeit anyway, and I should have been dead by now if Silver hadn't stood for me.
Silver?
Aye, he saved my life. Doctor, believe this. I can die, and I dare say I deserve it. But if they come to torture me...
Jim, I can't have this. Come with me and we'll run for it like antelopes.
No. You know right well you wouldn't do the thing yourself. Neither you, nor Squire, nor Captain, and no more will I. I gave my word to Silver, and back I go. But you didn't let me finish. If they come to torture me, I might let slip of where the ship is.
You've got the ship?
Part by luck and part by risking. She lies in the North Inlet on the southern beach and just below high water.
You found out the plot? You found Ben Gunn? The best deed you ever did, or will do, though you live to 90. And now you've got the ship. Every step it's you that saves our lives. And it'd be a poor return if we should let you lose yours. Silver! Moment, if you please.
Aye, aye, sir. Keep your voice down, Doctor. They're round upon us in a twinkling of an eye.
Jim here tells me you saved his life. That is not something I shall forget, just as your other actions are not something I shall forgive. But be that as it may, if we both get out of this wolf trap alive, I'll do my best to save you, short of perjury.
You couldn't say more, not if you was my own mother.
But a word of advice, John. Take your time when hunting out that treasure, and look out for squalls when you find it. More I cannot say, for it is not my secret to share. Now, I'm off to seek help for you. Keep the boy close beside you. His life guarantees yours. Here's Dick's medicine, Silver. I'll be back same time tomorrow. Goodbye, Jim.
Jim, if I saved your life, you saved mine, and I'll not forget it. This is the first glint of hope I had since the attack failed, and I owe it to you. But now, we're to go in for this here treasure hunt with sealed orders, to take it at a slow pace, and I don't like it. You and me must stick close back to back like, and we'll save our necks in spite of fate and fortune. Finish your breakfast, men, and then we're going on a treasure hunt. Avast there, lads. Read out them directions again, Master Hawkins.
Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north of nor-northeast, Skeleton Island, east-southeast and by east. 10 feet.
Must be one of them tall pines on the edge of the plateau.
Aye, aye, but which one, George? Which one?
Captain Silver! Captain Silver, over here!
He can't have found the treasure. That's clean atop, surely. Maybe it's the fever.
Imagining things, is it? Let's go see. Slowly, mine, slowly. My poor leg is beat.
'Tis a dead man, Captain. A skeleton.
So it is, Dick, so it is.
He was a seaman. Leastways, this is good sea cloth.
I didn't look to find a bishop here. But what sort of a way is that for bones to lie? It ain't in nature.
The man lay perfectly straight, his feet pointing in one direction, his hands raised above his head like a diver's, pointing directly in the opposite.
'Tis a compass. Jim, take a bearing along the lines of them bones.
East, southeast by east.
Thought so. This here's a pointer to keep us on track. 'Tis one of Flint's jokes, and no mistake. Just think, him and these 6 alone here. He killed them, every man. And this one, Allardyce, to judge by his yellow hair, he hauled here and laid down by the compass. Oh, shiver me timbers.
There ain't a thing left here. Not a copper doit nor a baccy box. It don't look natural to me.
No, by gum it don't. Not natural. No, not nice as you. 6 they were, and 6 we are, and bones is what they are now. Well, he won't walk again, leastways not by day. Let's follow Allardyce's finger and fetch ahead for the doubloons. Three tall trees, and about in the right line from Skeleton Island. Spyglass shoulder, I take it means that lower point there. It's child's play to find the stuff now. What you got there, Chick?
My Bible. Ward off Allardyce's spirit.
A spoiled Bible ain't gonna do you no good. I told you. If it ain't no good to swear by, what do you think a spirit would give for it? Besides, 'tain't Allardyce you need to worry about. 'Tis Flint.
15 men on the dead man's chest.
It's Flint, by thunder.
Come, this won't do. 'Tis someone skylarking, you may lay to that. Forward, men!
Darby McClough, take off the rum, Darby.
They were Flint's last words, his last words above board, and nobody in this here island ever heard of Darby, no one but us that's here.
Shipmates, I'm here to get that stuff, and I'll not be beat by man or devil. I was never afeard of Flint in his life, and by the powers I'll face him dead. There's 700,000 pounds, not a quarter of a mile from here.
Belay that, John. It don't do to cross a spirit.
Spirit! Ha! There was an echo. No man ever seen a spirit with a shadow. Well then, what's he doing with an echo to him, eh?
Come to think of it, though it was like Flint's voice, it was like somebody else's.
Aye. Oh, by the powers! Ben Gunn!
So it was!
Aye, nobody minds Ben Gunn! Dead or alive, nobody minds him! Forward to the treasure!
We set off at a murderous pace. Silver hobbled, grunting on his crutch. His nostrils stood out and quivered, and from time to time he turned his eyes upon me with a deadly look. In the immediate nearness of the gold, all else had been forgotten. His promise and the doctor's warning were both things of the past, and I could not doubt that he hoped to seize upon the treasure, cut every honest throat about that island, and sail away aboard the Hispaniola as he had first intended, laden with crimes and riches. Before a quarter of an hour, we reached the margin of the thicket.
'Tis here! 'Tis found!
Huzzah, mates! What?
Someone's gone and been before. A spirit, perhaps, spiriting away the treasure.
No!
Poor feverish Dick was right. The cache had been found and rifled. Before us was a great excavation, not very recent, but the sides had fallen in and grass had sprouted on the bottom. In this were the shaft of a pick broken in two and boards of several packing cases strewn around. On one of these boards, I saw branded with a hot iron the name Walrus, the name of Flint's ship. The 700,000 pounds were gone.
Jim, lad, take this pistol and stand by for trouble.
So you've changed sides again.
2 guineas? That's your 700,000 pounds, is it?
Dig away, boys. You'll find some pig nuts, and I shouldn't wonder.
Pig nuts? Mates, do you hear that? I tell you now, that man there knew it all along. Look in the face of him and you'll see it wrote there.
Ah, Mary's standing for captain again. You're a pushing lad, to be sure.
Mates, there's two of them alone there. One's the old cripple that brought us all here. The other's that cub I mean to have the heart of. Adam, mates! Ah!
She's the spirit of the wood! Run for your souls! Please, John, have pity.
George, I reckon I settled you.
2 dead, 3 still running.
We must head 'em off the boats.
No hurry, Doctor. They're heading the wrong way for that. Straight for Mizzenmast Hill, see? How do, Squire?
John Silver.
Aye?
You're a prodigious villain and impostor. A monstrous impostor, sir. I am told I am not to prosecute you on account of what you did for Jim here. Well, then, I will not. But the dead men hang about your neck like millstones.
Thank you kindly, sir. It were fortunate for me that I had Hawkins here, weren't it? You'd have let old John be cut to bits and never given it a thought.
Not a thought.
Back to the boats, is it?
Ben Gunn! You're a nice one, to be sure.
How do, Mr. Silver? Pleased to see you, Jim.
And are you, Ben?
Ben Gunn's the hero of this tale, Jim, from beginning to end.
Found Flint's treasure, I did, and moved it to my cave, carried it on my back.
Your cave?
The sea cave, not far from North Inlet. Let's be off.
Once I'd met with Ben and heard his tale, we decided to abandon the stockade for the cave, there to be clear of malaria and keep a guard upon the money. Jim's brave work with the Hispaniola gave us the bargaining levy we needed for a safe passage.
So that's why you gave up both Blockhouse and map. You had no more need of either of them.
But how did you get to the dig ahead of us? We left the stockade at almost the same time.
Ben Gunn was Cap'n Flint, so he was. Gave these gentlemen time to come about amidships.
Very prettily done, to be sure. To think as 'twas Ben Gunn did me.
We soon reached the gigs. The doctor, with a pickaxe, demolished one of them, and then we all got aboard the other and set out for Ben Gunn's cave, where a surprise awaited me.
The Hispaniola!
The tide released her this morning, and she floated past the cave. Gray swam out, got ready another anchor, and there you see her, ready to sail home to England.
Here's the cave now, and another surprise for you.
Ahoy there, Hawkins!
Captain Smollett!
You're a good boy in your line, Jim. But I don't think you and me'll go to sea again. You're too much of the born favourite for me. Is that you, John Silver? And what brings you here, man?
Oh, come back to my duty, sir.
Ah.
And with that, we entered the cave. It was a large, airy place, with a little spring and a pool of clear water overhung with ferns. The floor was sand. In the far corner, flickered over by the blaze of the campfire, I beheld great heaps of coin and quadrilaterals built of bars of gold.
Flint's treasure!
Aye, Jim. Treasure that has cost the lives of 17 men from the Hispaniola.
But how many has it cost in the amassing? What blood and sorrow, what good ships scuttled on the deep, what brave men walking the plank blindfold, what shot of cannon, what shame and lies and cruelty. No man alive can tell.
For the rest of that day, and those that followed, we fell to work transporting this great mass of gold to the Hispaniola. 2 of the bars, slung in a rope's end, made a good load for a grown man. For my part, as I was not much use at carrying, I was kept busy packing the minted money into bread bags. It was a strange collection, like Billy Bones' hoard for the diversity of coinage, but so much larger and so much more varied. Nearly every type of coin in the world must have found a place in that collection. And for number, they were like autumn leaves. Day after day this work went on. By every evening, a fortune had been stowed aboard, but there was another fortune waiting for the morrow.
What about the ones who ran away? Dick and the other mutineers?
Of them we saw nothing. Once we heard a gunshot a great way off, and supposed the three of them to be hunting. A council was held, and it was decided that we must maroon them on the island. To the huge glee, I must say, of Ben Gunn. At last, one fine morning, we weighed anchor and stood out of North Inlet. The three mutineers must have been watching us closer than we fancied.
Get down, Jim! Oh, that was a close-run thing and no mistake.
Who was it?
Who do you think? Dick and his mates, there, on the spit.
For God's sake, be merciful! Come back! You've been provided for. Stores have been left in Ben Gunn's cave. Powder and shot, salt goat, a few medicines and other necessaries. Don't leave us to die in such a place!
Taking you home to the gibbet seems a cruel sort of kindness. You must fare as best you can.
And with that, we left the spit of land and its three lonely occupants behind. Before noon, to my inexpressible joy, the highest rock of Treasure Island had sunk into the blue round of sea. We laid the ship's head for the nearest port in Spanish America, and thence to England. The Hispaniola reached Bristol just as Mr. Blandley was beginning to think of fitting out her consort. 5 men only of those who had sailed returned with her. Drink and the devil had done for the rest, with a vengeance.
And the treasure?
All of us had an ample share, and used it wisely or foolishly according to our nature. Captain Smollett is now retired from the sea. Dr. Livesey is an eminent physician in Bristol, where he occasionally treats Squire Trelawney's gout. Gray is now mate and part owner of a fine full-rigged ship, married besides, and father of a family. As for Ben Gunn, he got his £1,000, which he spent or lost in 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Well, 19 days to be exact, for he was back begging on the 20th. Then he was given a lodge to keep in the country. He still lives there, a great favourite with the locals, and a notable singer in church on Sundays and Saints' Days.
And Long John Silver?
Well, yes. Long John Silver slipped ship when we docked in South America, and he didn't go empty-handed. He'd cut through a bulkhead unobserved and removed one of the sacks of coin worth perhaps 300 or 400 guineas to help him on his further wanderings. I think we were all pleased to be so cheaply quit of him. And now, young James, I'd better let you get some rest, or your mother will keelhaul me.
I wonder where he is.
Who?
Long John Silver.
Oh, it was such a long time ago. But if he's still alive, I wish him no ill, wherever he is, for his chances of comfort in another world are very small. Now, sleep, James. That's an order.
Aye, aye, Captain. A seafaring man with one leg.
Prepare to drop anchor! You'd better be right about this, my fine fellow. I'm not a man who takes kindly to wild goose chases.
You see the map, Captain, with your own eyes? Flint marked 3 red crosses. 3, look you. And only one of them's been dug up. Trust old John. There's more treasure to be had on that there island. Ain't that right, Captain Flint?
Ah! It's red! It's red! It's red! Oh! It's red!
More room.
18.
No, you've got someone else. Is it 7 or 6 that you'd like Tony on?
7. Number 7, please. 7.
Thank you, number 2.
Number 2, over there. Sure, sounds good.
So it's pages 25 to 26. So we'll have Long John, Jim, and then... Okay, well let's have a read then from the top and give it a go. And running.
I'm looking for a Long John Silver. Mr. Silver, sir?
Yes, my lad. Such is my name, to be sure. And who may you be?
I have a note, sir, from Squire Trelawney.
Oh, so you be our new cabin boy, Master Hawkins. Pleased I am to see you.
Patient of 8. 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 Patient of 8.
Immaculate, absolutely brilliant.
Tom Baker here, playing the parrot in Treasure Island, and also the parrot's sidekick, Long John Silver.
Yo, ho, ho, and a bottle of rum.
All actors who are into extravagance would want to play Long John Silver because he's absolutely one of the great comic villains and one of the wickedest comic villains of the 19th century, really. And Treasure Island is, we all seem to know something about it. It's been filmed and played and everything like that, but here's this lovely version we are doing, and it's a marvellous thing to be able to play a villain that people are amused by. You know, he's a lovable villain. It's an amazing thing, that, isn't it? To say, you know, say he was a murderer. You say, yes, he was, but there was something kind of lovable about him. You say, well, what about after he killed George Merry? You say, well, I still liked him, you know. It's this wonderful alchemy that goes on with a fine writer, isn't it? It's really rather like people don't really hate Richard III, do they? Not really. No, they don't really. Whereas you would hate Iago. That's a different thing altogether. But some of those great villains are wonderful to play, yeah, and so I like him a lot. I'm very empathetic about it, although we're not playing it for laughs, which would be disastrous.
Okay, and in your own time, Tom?
Stand by to combat, snivelling skulker! Snivelling skulker!
This is the 9 o'clock news.
What are your memories of doing it on stage?
Well, again, of the glorious, you know, in those days, I think it was one of my first jobs as I finished with Doctor Who. And at the Mermaid Theatre, a very famous theatre associated with Treasure Island. It was a fantastic sellout, and there I did whatever it was, 9 performances a week for 8 or 9 weeks. It was a prodigious turnaround. And of course it was absolutely there. Ron Pember was a fine director, and he allowed me my head when it came to bad taste. And sometimes I do remember it convulsing the children, yes, and them screaming and shouting, yes. And also you get to laugh at your own jokes all the time. This is part of it, isn't it? I mean, of course you could play a very silent Long John Silver, but somewhere buried in our consciousness, it's that kind of pirate who laughs. And I think, actually, you know, that's to do entirely with, I saw Brian Blessed do it, and he laughed a bit like that, and I certainly do, because, of course, we were influenced by Robert Newton, who got round all that terrible villainy by just finding it terribly funny, didn't he? And, you know, and talking about rum, you get to drink a lot of... Well, no, curiously enough, he doesn't drink. John Silver doesn't drink at all. The others drink. He saves his money, yeah.
Excellent. Can I have just a couple of little annoyed squawks? Okay.
Bring us the rum, Darby. Bring us the rum. Darby McGraw! Darby McGraw!
I'm Barnaby Edwards, and I'm the writer and director of Treasure Island.
How are you feeling, my boy?
I'm fine, Father. Never better.
So I can hear.
Well, obviously, the great, fantastic main part of Treasure Island, as it were, the memorable part, Long John Silver, doesn't even appear till almost a third of the way through the novel. So we wanted to get, some other lovely actors in to play all the other parts. And the novel is very much, it's narrated, as it were, by Robert Louis Stevenson, but we changed that into being narrated by an older Jim Hawkins. So we've got Nicholas Farrell to play that part, who's got the most beautiful, beautiful voice, and I was really excited to sort of see him. He's just come off working on The Iron Lady with Meryl Streep, and he was straight in there. He's got a great narrator's voice, and his son, sort of the younger version of himself, is played by the same boy actor, Edward Holtham, who plays Jim Hawkins.
It was towards the close of the last century when your grandfather kept the Admiral Benbow Inn at the head of a lonely windswept cove in the West Country. I must have been about your age at the time. A little smaller than you, perhaps, but just as fond of trouble. I'm Nicholas Farrell, and I'm narrating the story, so I'm Jim Hawkins as a grown man. It's an interesting challenge to read long tracts from a story, but it has its own attraction, because you do get into a rhythm, and if you let yourself become a part of the story, it's a very satisfying thing in itself, particularly when the raw material, when the writing is as good as it is in the case of Treasure Island.
Mr. Silver, sir?
Yes, my lad. Such is my name, to be sure. And who may you be?
The only sadness to me, really, of turning up to do the reading, was that I'm not going to meet Long John Silver, because I've been a lifelong fan of Tom Baker, and I was so looking forward to meeting him and listening to his performance and watching it grow in front of me. And he's doing it tomorrow, and I'm only here today, so I'm rather sad about that. But never mind. I shall look forward to listening to it when it's all done. Why did you do it? You know you can't swim.
We were playing pirates. I was the captain. I had to walk the plank, or the other pirates would have called me a coward.
You can't have been a very good captain if you had to walk your own plank.
I'm Edward Holtham, and I play Jim Hawkins. My crew mutinied. I wanted to give the treasure to the poor. They wanted to divide it up amongst themselves.
They sound more like the pirates I know.
You don't know any pirates.
Not now, perhaps, but I did once.
I was in the Merry Wives of Windsor with Barnaby at the Globe, and also Gareth, who plays Ben Gunn as well. I played Robin, who was Falstaff's page, so his assistant, and I was like a messenger for him, really. At first I thought I was going to be able to go to America, because they went to America for, I think, 4 weeks, but the licensing was too hard, so I didn't get to go over to America, but I went to Norwich, Bath, Milton Keynes and Richmond, and yeah, it was really great. I got to miss a lot of school as well, so...
These are real pirates, James, not pretend ones. They lie, they cheat, they murder. I wouldn't want you to have nightmares.
Father, I'm not a little boy anymore.
No, you're not. Very well. Only not a word to your mother. Promise?
I promise.
One of the pleasures of doing a job like this is meeting and working with a young actor like Edward, who immediately just stepped into the shoes of Jim Hawkins and was up and running. And it's part of the joys of the job of meeting a new cast on each new project that you come to, and particularly satisfying when you work with young people, and I don't think Edward has done much audio before, if any. So it's been fun to see him getting to grips with it, and he's done terribly well already.
It's very different, but at the same time, it's sort of more relaxed as well, because you're not performing in front of a live audience, and if you make a mistake, then you can go back and do it again. So I wouldn't say I prefer it. I prefer it in different ways to acting on the stage.
Rum!
Of course, sir. If you'd care to take a seat next to the fire, I'll bring it over to you.
Much obliged. As you were, gentlemen, as you were.
Because one of the things I really wanted to make sure is that the whole novel is about a young boy, and it's not a sort of, an older teenager or a lad who can look after himself. It's about, a 13-year-old boy who encounters various father figures. He loses his father very early in the novel, and then he encounters, wildly exciting pirates who might be his father, disciplinarian boat captains who might be his father, responsible, brave doctor, bombastic, wild uncle figure. So it's about a boy who encounters various different older father figures who he can look up to or admire, and it's a coming of age tale. So I was really determined to get a genuine 13-year-old boy to play the part of Jim Hawkins, and Edward Holter was an actor who, he's been in lots of things. He was in the big revival of Oliver, playing Oliver, and I worked with him at the Shakespeare's Globe in Merry Wives of Windsor, and he's been in Sherlock and various things. But you need that lovely, innocent, unbroken voice, and he was brilliant to work with.
Captain Flint, this here's Jim Hawkins.
Patience of 8. Patience of 8. Patience of 8.
She's an African grey. My father had an engraving of one over the bar at the Admiral Benbow. They live a long time, don't they?
The boy playing Jim is absolutely lovely, but it's not easy because, of course, although he is only a boy, which is true, he doesn't, as in the time, speak like a boy. But on the other hand, of course, you might say, as in all great literature, in Shakespeare, nobody speaks like men in Shakespeare. They speak like gods. Even scullions and drunkards, and the biggest one of all, Falstaff, and then they suddenly talk like gods, and we accept that. We expect them to talk like gods. And so Jim does talk a little bit old for his age, but he does it very, very sweetly, because, of course, he's very earnest, and, of course, he is uncorrupted. He isn't some little gutter snipe from London or from Bristol who would have been corrupted and would have spoken in an entirely different way. Like the difference between the Artful Dodger and Oliver Twist. But because Oliver is sweet and the hero, for some amazing reason known only to Charles Dickens, he speaks as if actually, he'd been to Marlborough prep school. But we don't mind about that because he's lovely and sweet.
Doctor, get the captain and the squire down to the cabin, then make some pretense to send for me. I have terrible news.
Do you watch pirate stories? I mean, have you seen the Pirates of the Caribbean films and stuff?
I've got a German pen pal who told me that her favourite film was The Pirates of the Caribbean, but I haven't. Well, I saw the pirate Doctor Who.
That's as good.
Yeah.
And tell me, do you have any ambitions as an actor? What do you most want to do?
I'd like to be the Doctor. That's sort of probably the main thing I could ever hope for. But I'd like to do some really good films like Tom, and I know Tony Haygarth, his CV is about the length of your arm. It's just amazing, all of the things he's been in and all the people he's met. I'd like to do that.
Am I picking up that you're a big Doctor Who fan?
I'm not, completely obsessed with it, but I do watch all the TV shows and I get Doctor Who magazine and things like that.
We've got another actor who I hugely admire, Tony Haygarth, who's playing Billy Bones, who's this great... he's the first pirate that you meet in the story, and he's sort of wildly eccentric. He's a drunk, and he's got this secret. He's got the treasure map, and that's a great sort of... Tony plays another couple of roles in it, but that was a great sort of grandstanding performance from him.
This is a handy cove, mate. Much company?
No, very little company. This is about as full as we get.
Well, then, this is the berth for me. There. You can tell me when I've worked through them sovereigns.
My name is Tony Haygarth, and I play Billy Bones and Morgan. Long you've been a mate of mine, but you're a mate of mine no more. If I die like a dog, I'll die in my duty. Ah, you've killed Alan, have you? Kill me too if you can, but I defies you.
Morgan's a bit of a sad little creature, and the other one I play as well is Billy Bones. He's quite a character. He's a bit of a bad guy, and so I like bad guys. I've always enjoyed playing bad guys rather than good guys.
6 less mouths to feed, and the treasure. Ah, treasure. Where'd you bury it? Is it safe?
It's interesting. It's all grist to the mill. It's all part of the same thing, but all of different parts. You know. I mean, you want to get the good part. It's definitely going to be silver, isn't it? And then 1 or 2 other parts as well, you know. And of course, Jim Hawkins is a good little part. He's terrific, the young chap who's playing that. And it's a wonderful thing to be with these people and to stand in these little recording booths and give it large, you know. And it's a good thing. I'm really enjoying it.
I've seen dreadful things in my time upon this earth. Hanging, walking the plank, storms at sea, the dry Tortugas, wild deeds on the Spanish Main. I've lived my life among some of the wickedest men that God ever allowed upon the sea. And it's for the worst of them, as I want you to keep your weather eye open.
I'm Tony Millen, and I play Dr. Livesey, and also Blind Pew. Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, bearing a point to the north of nor-northeast. Skeleton Island, east-southeast and by east. 10 feet. The bar silver is in the north cache. You can find it by the trend of the east hummock, 10 fathoms south of the black crag with the face on it.
It's a very key part in the adventure, because Dr. Livesey is the responsible adult. I think probably the best father figure for Jim Hawkins, and he teams up with Squire Trelawney, who's played by me.
There's one man I'm afraid of, a man who could ruin the entire venture.
And who's that? Name the dog, sir.
You, for you cannot hold your tongue. Dr. Livesey he's quite prim and proper, but there is an avuncular side to him, and he does sort of generally look after Jim at points. And I play that in a more or less my straight voice. But then the challenge comes with Blind Pew, and Pew, I always remember from my childhood, Pew being this really evil, nasty creature. I suppose, the modern equivalent for younger kids today would be Darth Vader or something, evil incarnate, and I remember as a kid seeing drawings, illustrations where this creature, this dark harpy creature, was terrorizing the pub. And it's an extraordinary thing, because the man is blind, and yet he has such power. And so I'm doing that as nasty as I can.
Here, take my arm and
Don't
I'll... Ah!
Oh, boy. Take me to the captain.
The captain? I'm afraid he left an hour ago.
Don't lie, boy. Take me in straight, or I'll break your arm. Come now, march!
All well, I hope, Captain Smollett? All shipshape and seaworthy?
Well, sir, better speak plain, even at the risk of offence. I don't like this cruise. I don't like the men, and I don't like my officer. Yeah, that's short and sweet.
My name is Nicholas Pegg, and I'm playing Captain Smollett of the good ship Hispaniola, and I'm also playing a scurvy pirate called Black Dog, and a faithful old manservant called Red Ruth, and another pirate called Dick as well. So yes, I'm 4 different parts.
I was engaged, sir, on what we call sealed orders, to sail this ship for that gentleman where he should bid me. So far, so good. But now I find that every man before the mast knows more than I do. I don't call that fair, now do you?
Captain Smollett is quite an interesting character, because when you first meet him, you think he's a bit uptight, and we've already got to know Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney and Jim, of course, by this point, and they're off on this adventure. Captain Smollett's the chap who's been hired to captain the ship, and he's a professional and he knows what he's doing. And so when we first meet him, he's a bit of a fly in the ointment. He's sort of saying, no, we're not going to do it like this, we're going to do it like that. And he's rather like one of those people who strides in and says, oh, bunch of amateurs, I'll sort you out. But as the story goes on, we realise that Captain Smollett is a very, very valuable asset to the expedition, because when things go pear-shaped, it is, initially at least, it's certainly Captain Smollett who keeps the operation together and marshals the resources, gets them into the stockade, arms everyone, tells them what to do.
First point. Order the hands to put the powder and the arms under the cabin, and not in the forehold. Second point. You three, and your men, Redruth, Hunter and Joyce, are presently berthed forward. You move your berths here, beside the cabin.
Captain Smollett is played by Nicholas Pegg, who I'm sure many Big Finish listeners will be familiar with, who is the figure of authority, and in a sort of fantastic the avant la lettre, as it were, in a fantastic sort of bit anticipating every disaster movie that's ever happened. The great sort of responsible person who you know you can absolutely trust is sort of felled with a bullet at a really key moment of the adventure, and he may or may not be killed. We'll have to find that out when you listen to it. But then everyone else has to cope after it, and I notice they do the same thing in that terrible shark movie, The Deep Blue Sea. But this is considerably better.
You say you don't like the crew. Are they not good seamen?
I don't like them, sir.
Captain Smollett's the biggest of the parts that I'm playing, and I suppose that's why Barnaby cast me particularly, because he thought I'd be right for that part in particular, because he's not unlike myself. Captain Smollett is a sort of posh chap from who probably does speak a little bit like that, and of course I'm having to put a little bit more sort of historical spin on it and things. But yes, he's probably the character whose delivery is the most similar to myself. But yes, I'm being cast also as Black Dog and Red Ruth and things. Those sort of parts give me a chance to, any actor enjoys having a chance to come up with a few fruity things and have some fun with voices and things. And yes, it was, I kicked around a lot of ideas for those parts.
Bill's dead. Looks like he's been overhauled already. And someone's turned the chest out too. Is it there? The money's there, but no sign of Flint's fist.
Black Dog actually was one of the hardest ones to nail, but I think I probably got there in the end. And because again, you don't want to just be obvious and bland and just kick the door down as Black Dog and have nowhere to go with it. And I just in the script and in the novel, he's meant to be quite ingratiating to start off with before he turns up. So I thought, how do you do that? And I thought, well, it might be quite nice. And I thought, let's go low with the voice, do it quite low. But then I thought, well, what if he's got a slightly adenoidal thing like that? And then he'd be a bit like that. And then when he turns nasty...
You'll pay for that cut, you cur! Death's coming for you, Billy Bones. I'm coming fast!
You mightn't happen to have a piece of cheese about you now? Many's a long night I've dreamed of cheese. Toasted, mostly.
Gareth Armstrong, and I'm playing two characters, Ben Gunn and Israel Hands.
I can't stand by and do nothing. Goodbye, Ben.
When Ben Gunn is wanted, you know where to find him, Jim. Just where you found him today. And bring cheese.
Ben Gunn, of course, is the one who's been marooned on the island, so hasn't seen a human being for quite a long time, and is cheese deprived. Because he's having to live off what he can forage, obviously, and misses what he calls a Christian diet. We decided to play him Welsh, which is my native accent, and also I wanted to play him quite high-pitched, as I imagined, having not used his voice for a long time, when it came out, it would probably sound even strange to him.
I reckon, Captain Hawkins, you'll kind of want to get ashore now.
Israel Hands, sort of archetypal villain, really. So, to distinguish him, I make him quite deep and a sort of Londoner.
Now look here. You gives me food and drink and an old scarf or handkerchief to tie my leg up, and I'll tell you how to sail her.
Hello, I'm Nick Briggs. I'm a co-executive producer of Big Finish Productions. And in this, I'm playing George Merry, Mr. Arrow, the real Captain Flint, and a lookout.
Welcome aboard, sir. Captain Smollett's been asking to speak to you.
And that's the result of me insisting when Barnaby Edwards was setting about doing Treasure Island. I insisted that I was in it. I had hoped for a better part, but he's just given me this string of strange non-entities to play, which are brilliant, actually. I haven't done George Merry yet, but we've decided he's going to be a bit Ray Winston.
Let me see him that'll lay a finger on him. I'll be hanged if I'll be hazed by you, John Silver. Council, outside!
Fantastic. Nick Briggs is playing George Merry, who is the only serious competition to Long John Silver. He's the one who challenges Long John Silver's authority, and when it comes to the treasure hunt, they are sort of neck and neck seeking this treasure, and quite who will win out of Long John Silver and George Merry, you'll have to wait and find out.
There's two of them alone there. One's the old cripple that brought us all here. The other's that cub I mean to have the heart of. Adam, mates! Ah!
She's the spirit of the wood! Run for your souls!
I have done Mr. Arrow, who's brilliant and just gets, well, he's not brilliant, he's stupid and drunk. And I did about 5 takes of him being drunk in slightly different ways and falling over the edge of a ship, which I had such fun doing.
The mystery of it was we could never make out where he got the drink. Then, one dark night...
It's really lovely to be here, just playing small parts and not having the weight of responsibility on my shoulders.
Ready when you are.
And so the rum basically is what wakes him up, so you can get as close as you can. Rum! Okay, very good. Let's try it then. And running.
50 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Drink, and the devil have done for the rest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
I think it's a thrilling story. I mean, why does it remain in print? Because it's a beautiful story and it's constantly sold. Now with downloading or whatever it is, and now these lovely recordings to be downloaded, it's value. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. It's a great story, and so it lasts. It's not bad since Stevenson died quite early, isn't it? Mid 19th century. Yeah, he did. He wrote a lot. Tusitala, they used to call him on the island, Tusitala, which I think is kind of some lovely native language for storyteller. Tusitala.
When I was a small boy, small, I was about the age of Jim Hawkins, I suppose, I read Treasure Island, and it stayed with me so strongly and powerfully. I haven't read it since, but it's one of those stories that I think you just read and they stay with you, and particular scenes stay with you, and so I was absolutely delighted to be asked to read it. There are characters and moments, and for me, I never forget reading Blind Pew, which somehow his blindness added to the threat. I don't know quite how, but that remained so vivid in my memory. And the apple barrel, what Jim overhears when he listens, moments like that just have always stayed with me. It's such a wonderfully crafted story and so effective. And he's writing for an audience of young Jim Hawkins, and perhaps that's part of the reason it works so well.
I've always liked the idea of Treasure Island. I've seen it several times. I used to watch Robert Newton as Long John Silver in the series ages ago, and I've always loved the piracy, the idea of it, and I followed them up a little bit as well. The pirates, there were 2 lady pirates that were very famous as well at one point. Bonnie was one of them, and I can't remember the other one's name, but it's just a strange. It's kind of, in a funny sort of way, it's sort of romantic, but it's not romantic because they were pretty horrific with what they did to people and how they killed people and how they robbed from people on the oceans, and nobody really felt safe going across the oceans with the pirates around, and some of them were from different races. You could, nowadays as we get Somalian pirates and various other things which aren't romantic at all, but there's something about Long John Silver and those characters in there, Jim Hawkins and all the other characters, there's something about it that is just kind of has a romance to it, even though there's some horrible deaths in it and various other things. But it's just it's one of those things that live in the dark side of your mind, you know, like Dracula and vampires and like the Frankenstein monster that wanders through your dreams at night sometimes. And everybody's now thinking I'm an absolute, you know, lunatic, but in fact it is. We love all that. We love all that.
I think Treasure Island is one of the great novels of the 19th century. It doesn't perhaps have that sort of literary weight behind it that one thinks of, you know, with Dickens or George Eliot or something like that. But it was a huge success in its day. I believe it was Robert Louis Stevenson's first big success and what he was most famous for in his lifetime. And I think it really has stood the test of time. I read it again just before we recorded this, just to, you know, get into the swing of things. And I hadn't read it since I was a kid, and it's thrilling. It's a real page turner, and I think it deserves its place. It's a very exciting book, and it's extraordinary how much of it came back to me. I said I hadn't read it since I was a kid, but reading it again, I was transported right back to, you know, when I was, I don't know, I think I read it when I was 8 or 9 originally, and Blind Pew. I always find Blind Pew actually more frightening than Long John Silver. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, terrifying stuff. That's this sort of very gothic bit at the beginning of the novel, where before we set sail, getting in the Admiral Benbow. It's absolutely wonderful stuff.
Well, I think I take that for granted, really, because when I was a kid, every Sunday afternoon there'd be it was called the Classic Serial on Sunday TV, BBC One, when there was only BBC One. And Treasure Island was one of the first ones I saw, and one of the ones that made the most impression on me, because it's such a fantastic story. I have a great affection for Treasure Island, actually. I remember, you know, when I was a kid, there were television programs in those days where they just read out stories and showed you pictures, you know, and they didn't do animation and stuff. And I remember watching something like that. And also, I think the famous, it is a Disney adaptation, isn't it? Which was just, also there was a BBC adaptation too. It's a story that sort of, for children from a certain era, it runs through your life. It's one of those stories that, you know, people were always adapting, and, you know, you're always being encouraged to read it or have it read to you.
It's such a brilliantly well-told story. The narrative is so perfect, and it seems to me whenever I see any pirate film or story, I all feel that they're bobbing round in the wake of the Hispaniola, really. And none of the characters that I see, or however wonderful the digital CGI effects are, and sometimes they're wonderful, of course, but in terms of a story, I don't think anybody has bettered a seafaring pirate story better than Robert Louis Stevenson.
It's in that big morass of, you know, the Carpathian Mountains, the dim twilight of the subterranean mind, you know, and all of that, the oceans. It's these big, like you cross the Carpats, the Carpathian Mountains, and the forests there to get to Dracula's castle, and you go across the oceans to find Long John Silver's or the Pirates' Islands. It's all these kind of journeys of the mind and take you away from mundane things. You know, I've got to put the washing out for the while. Oh, no, I'll watch Long John Silver instead, you know, and it's the gusto of Long John Silver as well. The language, I love the language in it, you know. It's avast me hearties and things like that. It's all really, you know, sort of gutsy and good. And I think it was that, really, and just that was a short question you asked, but it turned into a long answer.
It's a cracking story, full of very vivid, colourful characters, and there's something quite I think there's something quite universal about the story of this boy, Jim, a very young boy who's lost his father, and all these other characters come into his life, all these different people, very different influences on him, and it's a story about pirates and treasure, but it's also a story about how a child negotiates growing up and meeting people and dealing with other people from these plausible villains like Long John Silver and authority figures like Captain Smollett and Squire Trelawney and Dr. Livesey, and they all bring slightly different influences to bear on him. But Jim is very much the hero of the piece, and he sort of navigates his way through all of these people. I think it's a beautiful piece of writing.
Lots of the characters are ciphers, obviously the class system in the 19th century, and especially someone like Stevenson coming from a very elegant class of Edinburgh. People there were doctors and people like that, and squires and everything like that, and they're all fairly stock characters, but eloquently written. But his great genius is that they were very constrained. How do you write about dirty, skulking, scummy pirates and have them only use the language of literature, really? That's it. They say things like "dash me buttons" and "by the powers" and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the whole 19th century is like that. If you read Hardy or Dickens or whatever it is, they were constrained by the strict orthodoxy of the reading classes, who couldn't have borne obscene language. But it's a marvellous, marvellous book. And he wrote several other wonderful adventure books and died young. That always helps, to become a legend, to die young, because you'd never give anyone time to get tired of you. I'm saying that's a very handy thing. In my own case, I have no regrets at all about not having died young.
Beat it to bait! Beat it to bait! Beat it to bait! Beat it to bait!
Oh,
perfect!
The opera ghost really existed. Oh, I know what you're thinking. That he was a mere phantom, conjured up by the imagination of artists, given flesh by rumour and gossip, and brought to life by superstitious fancy. But you're wrong. He was real. And this is his story.
A little while ago, several years back, I adapted a novel of The Phantom of the Opera, and that seemed to go very well, and we were very keen to find other titles. And one of the other titles I sort of earmarked was Treasure Island, because I thought that would be brilliant. But for various different reasons, that went on the back burner. And it was with immense delight that it sort of filtered through the various levels of Big Finish that Tom Baker, completely off his own bat, had expressed an interest in doing a production of Treasure Island with him playing Long John Silver, a part for which he's absolutely perfect. And so it was a sort of it resurrected the idea of doing a full cast adaptation of that, and indeed with having a sensational actor playing Long John Silver.
Tom just thought it would be a good idea. It was one of his he'd done a stage show of Treasure Island many moons ago, and many of his anecdotes concern it, and his desires for Long John Silver to be even more ruthless than he was in the book. So it's a great love of Tom's. And when he said it would be great if we could do it, we thought it would be a fantastic opportunity to get Barnaby Edwards, who's already done a brilliant adaptation of Phantom of the Opera for us, to extend our classics range by doing Treasure Island. So, yeah, we asked Barney. Basically, Barney's brilliant if you give him a project that he can have total control of, because he, has the total picture in his head. And, it's ideal. And Barney just went off and applied his literary mind to the novel, and has done a corking adaptation, and kept in touch with Tom about it, because Tom had his ideas as well, and I think that it's going to be absolutely splendid.
Harry's a good runner. Few seamen runs better than Harry. He should run him down hand over hand by the powers.
Excellent.
This isn't the first classic adaptation that Barnaby's done for Big Finish, of course. He did Phantom of the Opera 2 or 3 years ago, which got some very good reviews. And I know that when Barnaby adapts one of these things, he takes it very seriously. I mean, it's a labour of love for him. And, obviously the first thing he does is he goes back and reads the original book and takes notes and works out. Because dramatising something like this isn't just a case of taking all the dialogue out of the book and writing it down as a script. There are times when you have to rearrange the information supplied, or change scenes, or compress scenes to make it all work, and of course to make it work on audio as well. And what he's done is incredibly clever, because he's remained absolutely faithful to the spirit of the book, but he's created a piece of drama, and a piece of drama isn't the same as a novel, but very, very faithfully he's transposed Treasure Island into an audio play, and very much a labour of love for Barnaby. He knows exactly what he wants now that he's in the studio as well. He's very precise about what he wants us to be doing and how he wants us to play the characters.
The big challenge, I think, of doing the adaptation for Treasure Island is, unlike with the previous one, which is a French novel, which I was adapting, where I'm reasonably free to make up my own dialogue, Robert Louis Stevenson did a pretty good job of writing the lines for all of his characters. So there's so much material, and you want to put it all in, but obviously it's a 350-page novel, and we've only got 2 hours to tell it in. So I think the agonies of that was trying to condense everything so that everything from the novel is in, all the main scenes, all the exciting thing, and you've also got time for sort of nice to change the pace and have quiet moments and then dramatic moments, whilst not losing any of the richness of the novel. You keep it all in. So the big challenge of that was to cut it all down and to make a coherent adventure without losing any of the wonders of Robert Louis Stevenson's original tale.
One of the joys of being able to do this as an adaptation with audio rather than on film, of course, is that the listener can use their own imagination to create the scenes and the characters, with a little help from the cast, of course. It does lend itself particularly well, I think, to a radio version, where we can hear the wind, we can hear the waves, as well as the characters plotting and thinking their way through a situation. And the high seas lend themselves wonderfully to releasing the imagination of the listener, I think. So it does, I think it should work terribly well.
Huzzah, mates! What in thunder?
Yep, perfect. I mean, one of the great things about the writing process was that before I did the adaptation, I wanted to speak to Tom about how he viewed Long John Silver and how he sort of viewed the adaptation, because there's no point in writing an adaptation for someone to play Long John Silver if, when it comes in, it's the adaptation that they absolutely didn't want. And Tom was very firm. He wanted a straight down the line adaptation with, as accurate and as true to the novel as possible, but with a couple of little nods to the sort of the external history, as it were, of Long John Silver, which is exactly what we've done. I mean, there was an awful lot, rather, with like Sherlock Holmes and James Bond and all these kind of characters. There's an awful lot of fiction that's been written, set before Treasure Island and set after Treasure Island, all about Long John Silver, and we wanted to add to that fiction, so we've done a little sort of extra bits at the beginning and end. So hopefully that will be something new that people haven't ever heard of, even if they are very familiar with Treasure Island.
Dead or alive, nobody minds him. Forward to the treasure. Oh, he's a funny
Excellent,
bloke.
Excellent.
Who's there? Don't let him get away.
I got him, Long John.
Good work, Dick. George, open the lantern and let's see our mouse.
Tom, he's great fun. I haven't worked with Tom before, and, from the moment I met him this morning, well, he's a presence to be reckoned with.
Tom, I've worked with Tom before. He played my father when I worked at the National Theatre. I did She Stoops to Conquer, and he was my father in that, Hardcastle. I've worked with Tom quite a few times. He's quite a character, and I do admire him. I like him a lot. He's a good man. He's very funny. Makes me laugh on stage, which shouldn't be the case. And he's a great guy. Lovely to work with.
Well, when I first heard that Big Finish were planning to do an audio version with Tom Baker, I thought, well, of course. How can it have taken this long? What a brilliant idea! I mean, Tom was born to play Long John Silver, and giving an absolutely fantastic performance. And I think Barnaby's assembled a wonderful supporting cast for Tom, and we're having a whale of a time. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I hope it all comes off and is very successful.
Well, of course, I first worked with Tom when I was 27, and he hasn't changed at all, really. I mean, when I think what I looked like 27 and how different I look now. And Tom, apart from being silver-haired, looks very much the same.
I haven't really sort of talked to him. He's told a lot of stories in the green room. He is definitely a big character. He's really kind, and at the same time he's just really quite funny as well.
Ah! Mr. Egg! Mr. Egg! Mr. Egg! Mr. Egg!
Very good.
Chest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done for the rest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum.
And one of the other things we were quite keen on, and I'm sure if people who know the novel, they know that there is Yo Ho Ho and a Bottle of Rum, the song that sort of permeates, it comes through every now and then in the novel. And unusually, we wanted to involve the cast in that before we'd even done it. We'd normally do that in post-production. So Howard Carter, who's doing the music and sound design on this, wrote a fantastic piece of music for that. So we spent, I think, probably maybe an hour of recording time getting this song right, and various different characters singing it and bringing it in. Obviously, of course, there were drunk pirates singing it, and there are, sort of incidental music pirates, as it were, singing it. And I think having that sort of sea shanty feel to it gave it a wonderful romantic thing, and I think it put everyone in the mood for the whole production. So I'm really excited about Howard's work on it, and indeed the work of all the cast.
Chest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done for the rest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done for the rest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum.